The single and short exchange was already impressive on its own, but the final counter surprises even the Sandaime. Usually one can either attack or defend, but Naruto's quick thinking changed his staff's direction and aimed at Neji's head instead. He probably knew that had Neji goes through with the combo it would become too fast, hence why he had to quickly cut the flow. Those that understood the mechanics in the fight couldn't help but admire the two, and yet all this is still only the beginning. The staff is considered as one of the most versatile weapons because of its applications. In the hands of a proficient user, it not only gives the him per superior range, it can also be used defensively. It's one of the main reason the war veteran Sandaime uses the same weapon. As for our fate-obsessed combatant, the hit was not as bad as its humiliation. Falling for such a cheap shot was one thing, but at the same time and to be seen by an arena full of spectators is another. It may have took him by surprise, but it's not enough to floor him. However, it was strong enough to send him to his knee, thus making him look like he's kneeing down to his opponent. Hence why it's understandable why someone such as he, coming from a noble clan, would be so furious. As for Naruto, he didn't let his lucky hit get to his head. The pandas have taught him well, so had Master Splinter, therefore until the fight is declared finished his heart will be on the battlefield. Hence why he quickly follows through by sending testing jabs on his opponent. Neji may have been furious, but he didn't survive this long as genin based on luck. Even after he was showed up by someone he considers lower than himself, his body acted quickly. Pushing himself on one leg, he dodged then slide alongside the staff for another, gentle fist, opportunity. He only needed to get close and his clan art will do the rest.
It was excellently timed because he countered just as Naruto extends his staff. The blonde had to quickly pull back just as Neji got inside his defense. Luckily our hero still manages to shield himself thanks to his intensive training he had against the turtles. He learned that keeping his guard up at all times saved him many close calls. Hence how he was just in time as Neji closes in.
Then again, in order for the young Hyuga prodigy to counter, he needs to travel the entire length of the staff, thus giving our hero some time to react and defend himself. Under normal circumstances Naruto would be no match against him. Aside from the weapon advantage, its length also plays a huge factor, as well as the extra training he had during the 3-month period. For this reason he learned not to throw his attack with full power, hence how he was able to pull back just in time as Neji's palm connects. For a good staff user, an inch longer means an inch stronger, but it all depends on how the wielder uses the weaponry. Still, the gentle fist is not to be taken lightly, as Neji's strike has enough power to knock him backwards and out of balance. Naturally his opponent took full advantage of it. You are in my field of divination. Just as he was about to start the full trigram sequence, our most unpredictable ninja isn't without his own bag of tricks. Instead of blocking, he quickly leaps away, making it seem like he's keeping his distance. What no one anticipated was why he letting go of his staff in mid-jump. They all know how deadly the Hyuga's gentle fist is, thus it's understandable why he wanted to get away, but throwing away his only advantage is lost to the audience. Not only the spectators, his Hyuga opponent too was surprised by the move, but it had not distract him from what he is about to do. It was for this reason why Neji was surprised when something suddenly slams into his bowels. When he looked down, it's the same bamboo stick his opponent threw away. Apparently Naruto hopping back wasn't just to keep his distance nor fixing his stance, he also took the opportunity in midair to use his feet for a surprise attack by kicking his staff into his opponent. The result is just as anyone can see. Neji felt like he had just ran into a gate barrier that just under his chest. No doubt he will be bruised for a while, not to mention the breath he's short of when the staff hit him.
His only consolation was he has his opponent's weapon. But since he had never used a staff in his entire life, Neji was lost what to do with it. He didn't want to throw it away, risking it falling back in his opponent's hands. Keeping it on the other hand isn't easy because it isn't exactly light, and its length isn't making it easy to conceal it neither. The analysis took less than a second as those thoughts went through our prodigy's mind, until a hand sudden grabbed the said staff. A second of indecision is all it needed for Naruto to act. He didn't exactly waited, because as soon as his feet touches ground he immediately sprang back for his weapon. You can forgive Neji for his inaction also, as anyone would have been surprised when something unexpected were shoved into you. Since his family only valued their family art, an extra weaponry on hand would naturally make him feeling out of place.
Even a prodigy such as he would not know whether he should hold on or just drop it. Unfortunately, he didn't have time to ponder as Naruto quickly grabbed hold of his weapon while at the same time delivering a kick to his solar plexus. With both of his hands on the staff, Neji was once again unprepared and took the blow, directly pushing him back. Staff back in hand, Naruto quickly follows through with a swing, hoping to score another hit. Thanks to the length of his weapon, he can strike without getting too close himself. After the initial few exchanges, our blonde hero knew exactly just how dangerous his opponent is. The Hyuga prodigy's not only fast, his style is like an vortex that can instantly swallow him if he ever get caught up in it.
Based on the short exchange, he knew Neji's much stronger than he is. Even with his weaponry and range as advantage along with his unpredictability, he only managed a few blows. For this reason, he need to capitalize every opportunity he can to finish off his opponent. The longer the fight, the more disadvantaged he would be.
His inner feelings may not be known to his opponent, but somehow Neji managed to defend from his blind spot without looking. To make matters worse, Neji decides now to turn on his Byakugan. Without showing any sign of panic, Naruto pulls back his staff, doing a half turn before striking again from the opposite side and from another angle. It was smoothly done and not even using the time-consuming wide swing to attack. The power of the blow can be seen as the force of the impact moved both Neji's hair and garb. Sadly, it was easily stopped again by his palm. The Byakugan sees all. This time Neji held on with chakra grip. Everything is going wrong because of this cheap knockoff of a staff. He's fully intended to break it into 1,000 pieces. Having already set in position, he raises his palm before bringing it down. Empowered by chakra, he will destroy what he considers as pesky stick in one strike. Neji's still intended to show the blonde why he's fated to win. Sadly, it was too late for Naruto to stop him as Neji held the other end with a death grip. His last desperate attempt was to home in for a kick, but it was easily sidestepped. It didn't even slow the Hyuga prodigy. He can only watch helplessly just as the gentle fist hits his precious staff. However, to both combatants' surprise, the bamboo did not break.
Instead, it actually sent the Hyuga flying back a few paces, and at the same time making his striking hand numb. Unfortunately to Naruto, it was not permanent, but it caused both combatants to pause and stare at the staff with wide eyes. Neither expected the bamboo staff to be indestructible.
Using his all-seeing eyes, Byakugan, Neji can see energy flowing within the weapon. He curses himself for his continuous mistakes in not seeing this early. Whatever it was is actually alive, thus making his situation more complex because there's very little he can do against such odd weaponry. There had been sentient swords, but a staff is something he never heard of. Sadly, the theory is the least of his problems as the said weapon is now being used against him. As for Naruto, he was both glad and extremely grateful for the gift because there's more to the staff than just an ornament. He had thought it was just a symbol like the Konoha headband, and he's glad he's wrong. Naturally, he would be correct to assume there will be more training if he wants to maximize his use of the gift. In a way, the weapon can be considered semi-sentient as it's filled with life energy, therefore if he wished to fully utilize its special features he will have to go back to the pandas. He did remember the elders telling him, translated by Master Splinter, he should be able to channel chakra through the staff like the pandas do with their ki. Coming back to the fight, surprisingly it was our hot-headed blonde that recovers first before the stolid-looking Hyuga. Swiftly he pulls back his staff before spinning it around his waist for a quick attack. Others may have mistaken his display of skill were a way to show off, but an expert staff user such as the Sandame would tell you otherwise. In order to swing the full length of a staff requires some significant strength even for an adult, hence by swinging it in motion it not only builds up momentum and power, it also speeds up the delivery of his attack. By spinning the weapon around his waist, Naruto's using his body like a pivot for both control and support. Even having the staff traveled around our blonde knucklehead a couple of times, the attack was delivered both fast and swift. Unfortunately, Neji easily sensed the incoming attack, thus defended it easily. The whole audience in the arena can see how powerful the blow was as it even moved the young Hyuga's hair. The blow was literally cutting air, therefore everyone was surprised that a gentle fist can even stop that. Yet his opponent was unmoved thanks to his chakra-covered palm, not to mention his superior skills in the Hyuga art.
As soon as Neji found out he couldn't destroy the weapon, he had to frown a little. However, since he thinks the Hyuga art is flawless, and that fate is still on his side, he wasn't too bothered by it. It will only be a matter of time. In the end, fate will overshadow his opponent's pointless struggle. Like always, he thinks what Naruto's doing only delays the inevitable.
Knowing that in range combat he will never get past the older Hyuga's defense, Naruto had to risk himself by getting close. He had already exhausted all his tricks and all the strikes he could carry out from the distance easily blocked. Our hero had to try something different. However, he didn't just recklessly dive into his opponent's line of attacks. Instead, he used his staff as shield while at the same time disrupting his opponent's footwork. He learned from the turtles that if you can't beat them in skill, he will have to make them fail somehow. Hence, instead of trying to strike a hit, he start placing his staff in troublesome places or simply get in the way of his opponent's comfort zone. Take Neji's foot for example. Naruto would aim and stab his foot with full force, thus driving his staff a quarter of its length into the dirt. With chakra, nearly everything is possible, especially when it comes to how much our knucklehead have inside of him. It not only intimidates his opponent, it sends a clear message how serious he is. Naturally, Neji was a little shocked at the power behind the attack. Had he moved his foot a little slower, he would have been crippled. Aside from the stunting effects, it forces his opponent to back off while at the same time disrupting his own stances. So as his Hyuga opponent takes a step back, our blonde quickly invade his space while attacking at the same time. It was first time someone gets so close against his Hyuga style, thus Neji had no idea how to counter. Especially when Naruto sometimes uses his staff as shield while the two revolve around it.
A number of times, Neji tries to ignore the stick, but it often gets in his way. He can still gentle fist, but he would not be able to follow through with his attack without having to go around the staff. To make matter more humiliating, Naruto would poke holes in his defense. The blonde is like a monkey, using his weapon like a tree branch and swinging sideways for a slingshot kick.
Having a long stick around is normally not practical when it comes to close combats, but even the Sandaime is surprised how effective Naruto can use it. Thanks to his staff, the boy was able to attack from left, right and sometimes above as he pole vault himself over it. Even when Neji had anticipated the move, he would hang on to his staff while fight with just his feet. Then there's also the chance he would simply deliver the attack directly using his staff as weapon as it meant to be used. On one occasion he targets his foot, sending again a quarter of his staff into the arena floor. Naruto then uses his staff like a pole as he swings his entire body around, forcing Neji to duck. Unfortunately, the attack didn't end there as the blonde returns to his side and kicks the bottom of his staff, kicking up dirt and debris, forcing Neji to retreat. Continuing his efforts, Naruto followed through for another kick which Neji had to defend from. This, however, was a setup to bring forth his weapon as it slams into the Hyuga prodigy. Neji may have successfully defended himself several times, but even he starts feeling the little sting every time the rod slams into him. Yet Neji cannot attack as his opponent twirls his weapon sometimes like a propeller, making it extremely dangerous to stick his hand in. Not only his staff is deadly, his taijutsu too were no laughing matter neither, as they complement well with his staff. He couldn't understand how this guy is dead last if he could fight this good. Unknown to Neji, the teachers in the academy didn't want to evaluate him. Iruka did try to test both Naruto and Hulk of his skills separately, but when it comes to Naruto demonstrating his taijutsu, the Hulk replaced him. The giant looked around wondering why he was there before leaping away. Only Iruka was left sighing for any failure to test the blonde. When our hero finally awakes from his transformation, he once again found himself in the panda territory, knowing his other half must have ditched his test. So on his official record he never did pass his taijutsu part.
With one final push, our orange-loving ninja thought it was time to bring out his trump card and summon his shadow clone for the final strike. Having 8 of himself attacking from 8 directions at the same time, there's no way even a prodigy could escape from this. Sadly, our hero is wrong again. Hakesho Kaiten, or the Heavenly Spin. Neji too hit his own trump card to last. One single move he was both able to defend and attack at once, dispelling all his clones.
When it was over, Neji realized all the Narutos were clones as 8 more came leaping down on him before striking him at 8 point. Apparently there were 2 teams of Narutos as the first 8 were taken out, the second leapt in the air. They only came down just in time to catch the young Hyuga off guard. By then it was too late for him as he was ill-prepared for the second wave, thus losing his match. As for Naruto, it didn't matter whether his initiate attack succeed or not, it will serve only as both a distraction as well as means of weakening his opponent. Having observed some of the forest animals fight made our hero learned not to underestimate even injured animals. As it turns out, Neji did have an ace up his sleeve, thus making him jump as high as he can in order to avoid the deadly rotation. Again his luck saved him, giving him the opening he needs, hence how he defeats his opponent. Unknown to the audience, the 16 clone attack was in fact part of the panda's formation. Based on the 8 trigrams like the Hyugas, the panda's 2 categories there are on 8 directions. Hence depending on the needs, there could be 8, 16, 24, 32, 40 attacks coming wave after wave. Naruto somehow used this concept and made 3 waves where the last and final is backup. Beginning of invasion. After Naruto's victory, the rest of the match went the way in both manga and anime did. With Kankuro dropping out from the match against the Aburame, Shikamaru is next to fight soon as Wind Mistress. The Nara would have forfeited himself or went with his original plan by taking his time, but having Naruto booted him out impatiently and hurrying him up, the genius boy had to revise his plan. Aside from his mother, Naruto's other form scares the crap out of him, thus he opted to finish his match as quickly as he can. Like his original plan, he forces his opponent to think they were in charge, but in reality it was actually he that's been manipulating it all along. Tamari thought she was safe by staying away from the Nara's visible shadow, only to find out another she couldn't see from one of the flagpoles. It was just too narrow to be visible. He had been baiting her the entire time, keeping her eyes on his shadow as distraction. In the end, he forfeited by making excuses that he's out of chakra, but everyone from Konoha knew he was just too lazy to fight another battle. For comedy purpose I will say the rest of the fights ended quickly and earlier than expected. So in the end, the whole arena waited in bated silence, all thanks to the Cage's suggestions. He was right in a way that most of the audience came to see the last Uchiha, hence why his match was delayed to appease the crowd. However, they didn't expect to continue the wait even after the whole first round fights were finished. Prince or no prince, everyone's running out of patience as neither the last Uchiha nor his sensei showed up. Even Orochimaru in the Cage disguise was red-faced when he ran out of excuses. The lords and nobles in the audience too were getting agitated as they sent representatives to ask when the match would continue. Then there are other royal families in the audience to consider. Many began to criticize the situation, all because of one Uchiha. You can make excuses by reshuffling the order of the match or delaying the fight by using breaks as excuse, but eventually the fight must go on. It was one of the reasons why Orochimaru had to start the invasion early. Another reason was due to Kabuto informing him the blonde genin is actually the green monster. Having faced him in action forced Orochimaru to change his plan. He wants to have the crazy raccoon focusing on destroying the village, whereas he himself can take care his own sensei. Having both Jinchuriki and the dumb giant in same area only complicate things, hence why he had Gaara relocated. The same goes for the Hulk. Orochimaru still have no idea what that thing can do, but he isn't going to risk it ruining his long-forged plan. As the feather caught everyone's attention, it triggers the sleep genjutsu effect, sending everyone to sleep. It was the signal for the invasion, thus the entire stadium was in chaos as new ninjas enters to secure the arena. Unfortunately the genjutsu was just too effective as it put most of the genins to sleep, leaving only the jonins and chunins to defend the village. Only a handful of genins were awake, and sadly this does not include Naruto. The Hulk may be strong and have high resistance to genjutsu, but as Naruto he is just like any other genin. He himself may have high chakra capacity, but unlike his alter ego they were not raging and constantly pumping like a geyser through his system. Hence without fine control and understanding it was difficult for him to know when he was being manipulated. Thus making him an easy target for low-level genjutsus. Fortunately, his weakness is overshadowed by his instincts. Like a sixth sense, the human body have other means of sensing danger. This was the reason how his transformation was always triggered when danger actually came to him. Sadly, this fact was of course unknown to foreign ninjas, otherwise the ninja could accomplish half of his objectives by eliminating the other genins. That is only if the genius genin being too lazy to stop him. Shikamaru may be a sloth when it comes to doing work, but he is no way suicidal or let his friends gets murdered just so he can get some shut-eye. Yes, he had been acting all this time hoping to avoid partaking what he considers as troublesome endeavor. However, the appearance of an enemy Jonin forced him to evaluate his situation as well as his friends. Both he and his best friend Choji are still genins. It is natural for his genius mind to tell him those fighting would be at least chunin or jonins, thus he didn't bother getting up and fight a losing battle. So when the ninja turned up, he waited because the closer he is the stronger his shadow can hold him.
The Nara miscalculated. Instead of coming to him, the ninja went to his blonde classmate. At first he was worried for his classmate, but quickly feeling relieved, because Naruto is the Hulk, and Hulk is Naruto. So he was never in any real danger. However, Shikamaru soon realizes the significance of his actual predicament, thus making him more nervous than before. On one hand, he could get up and run, thus result in an enemy Jonin give chase, then eventually kill him. He may be smart, but one doesn't need his genius mind to see the outcome. Then on the other hand, he could wait until the Hulk wake up, then wreak havoc. Somehow he has the crazy feeling that the first choice is less troublesome.
In the past, his father had warned him about the giant and constantly reminding him not to make his classmate angry. Even as a genius he was skeptical because the whole story sounded really far-fetched, and this is Naruto they are talking about. Seeing is believing. Like many other ninjas, Shikamaru was blown away when he first shown his transformation. He then almost swore a storm because instead of thinking it an exaggeration from his father, it's an understatement. The giant isn't just impressive by size, its muscles weren't for show neither. If any of his classmates pitted against it in a fight, giving up would be the logical choice. The young Nara can only sweat drop when his best friend Choji befriends the transformed Naruto by offering him a chip. Sadly, when the chip is placed on the giant's hand, it looked insignificantly small. Comically, the changed Naruto stares whatever it was in his hand, then look back at his benefactor. Seeing Choji continues to eat his chip, the Hulk licked it into his mouth, accepting the kind offer. Shikamaru's dilemma.
When his father first warned him about the Hulk, the young genius was skeptical. However, nothing can prepare him for the incredible transformation of his classmate, from someone their size to monstrously huge. Like all the other ninjas that first encounters the Hulk, he was blown away, and all Naruto complained about was his orange jumpsuit being ripped to pieces when he first transformed. Thankfully, the Akimichi clan have similar issues with their multi-size techniques, hence they have developed stretchable clothes.
Unfortunately, the Hulk prefers his upper body bare, so they change the design a little so the blonde can pull up his top once he changes back. All fun aside, it didn't make the young Nara feel any better because of his father's warning. Don't make him angry. He says, the Hulk always look angry, thinks Shikamaru. As genius he is, his mind lets him think of many useless stuff others never thought about.
Thanks to his analytical mind, his father was right. Aside from his mother, the Hulk is scarier. At least from his point of view, his mother can be reasoned or bribed by promising extra work and effort. The Hulk, on the other hand, would make you feel sorry by keep on pummeling you. You can forgive him as he didn't know about ramen at the time. Hence, whenever the Hulk is around, Shikamaru always found himself tiptoeing around the giant. Sadly, it doesn't mean he didn't get his fair share of problems that is more troublesome than he would have liked to admit. Shikamaru likes to sleep. One time he was dozing off in his usual place, academy grounds under the giant oak tree. It was quiet and perfect place for a nap and under the shades. For a while he can forget reality, even the thump, thump, thump sound that's coming in his direction.
Obviously, it turns out to be one of his very first mistakes. It was not just the young Nara that likes to take naps, even our resident giant enjoys some peace and quiet. Seeing the content look on his classmate's face, the Hulk took to the other side to lie down. Using the tree as support, the massive giant accidentally pushed the tree over. The Nara on the other side was annoyed by the unnatural sound, only to open his eyes to see his favorite tree come crashing down on top of him. What got everyone all worked up afterwards was after getting him out, they found him sleeping under the whole incident. When asked why he didn't do anything, he responded that it was too troublesome and just let others do the rescuing. Even his mother didn't know if she should have been angry or laugh. Then again, the boy was right. He knew he would be found sooner or later. Especially when they discovered the toppled tree and his friends knew he likes to sleep under it. Screaming for help could get him rescued sooner, but the lazy boy just wanted an excuse to sleep longer, so he advantage of his situation. Still, since then the lazy genius always sleeps with an eye open. He may like the free pass to sleep, but not with a face full of bruises or broken bones. More embarrassingly, his mother praising his classmate Naruto for it, saying he's a great help in motivating her lazy son. Awakening of the Hulk.
Then his father's warning hit him like a brick, and Shikamaru soon realized the real implication of his situation. He had seen his classmate transform many times when he was in danger, so there's no need to worry for his friend's safety. However, the only issue is the rest of the genins in the same room with him. Therefore, it's the aftermath that bothers him. Having Hulk in the same class as he made Shikamaru learn more about the Hulk than he wishes to admit. Thus he knew that Giant gets pissed easy by every small things. Unfortunately, a poke to the heart would definitely irked the big guy.
This is definitely the worst scenario he is having. The Nara doesn't want to be in the same room when the big guy starts his rampage. The scene from the written exams were a fine example, as they were literally trapped under the same roof. Sadly, his current situation were no different, as he didn't want to alert the Jonin because it doesn't need his genius mind to figure out he's not match for a Jonin. So the young Nara can only bid his time, and pray that he can execute his plan in time and as smoothly as he hoped he can. In such a critical times, he remember his father's nonchalant warning that the Hulk had never been really angry when he was in the academy. The thought only scares Shikamaru more, hence one can understand what the young Nara is going through now. He's like waiting for a natural disaster that's about to happen and hope to evacuate in time when it does. Shikamaru had no need to fear for his orange-clad friend, as Naruto had proven from time to time he was never in danger thanks to his condition. Call it a bloodline, or a werewolf syndrome if you must, but Naruto will have to live with it. One time the Nara boy saw the Hulk trip and fell into a barrel full of weapons only to destroy the school's finest collection in the progress. So just as the ninja strikes the blonde, Shikamaru quickly bounces up and grabs his best friend while pumping chakra through his system, hoping to jumpstart him from the genjutsu. Unfortunately, it was easier said than done, but thankfully Choji woken up due to the sudden pulse of chakra emitted from the Hulk. It acted like a shock wave, disabling the genjutsu around him, thus waking everybody up. All it needed was, the Hulk is coming out. And the big-boned Akamichi ran along with his best friend. Other genins too followed suit. They may not know what the Hulk is, but the dangerous atmosphere urged them to evacuate quickly.
The Sound Jonin was first shocked that a genin is still awake just as he takes out one of his targets. He thought everyone fell from the genjutsu. No one would pretend sleep and ignore an invasion, right? Well, he miscalculated the Naras, as they were known for both their genius as well as their laziness.
However, this was the least of his problems because the attack he made felt completely wrong. It lacked the penetrative feel or the usual bloodlust he gets after every killing. Did the genin wear protective armor? He didn't know. Then again, it's another problem, as it seems to have triggered some sort of mutation in the genin. Pure amazement was his afterthought as the boy grew from small to gigantic in matters of seconds. Even its hands and feet were as big as his own waist. He only realized his own mistake when he found the giant glaring at him before sucker punching him out of the genin stand and across the entire arena. The Jonin hit the other side of the wall like a sack of potato before sliding to the arena floor. From the sudden pulse of chakra to a group of genins storming out, it's as if things couldn't get any weirder. Then there's the laziest Nara and his fat Akamichi friend running ahead and faster than the rest of the genins is a sight to be seen by those from Konoha. If all that didn't catch everyone's attention, the flying sound Jonin across the entire arena would definitely get their attention. Those not know about the Hulk would be horrified to find one big, green gigantic hand appearing from where the Jonin flew out from. The audience's heart skips a beat as the wall collapsed from the weight of the hand, making them nervous at what's really behind that display. In fact, the entire stadium watched with anticipation as they hear angry growls and loud noises. Whatever it was, they knew it's not small. It was not just the foreign ninjas, even Konoha ninjas watches with anticipation. That's exactly when the Hulk bursts out and appearing in the center of the arena. He happens to land right next to Genma and Baki. In that moment, time seems to have just stopped. Both the full appearance of the Hulk, crashing to the arena floor, not to mention the cracks it caused, alerted every ninja to him. No one wanted to move to draw its attention. It's already intimidating as it stood on its full height, towering over every ninja present. Genma had never given command to the Green Giant, so he was a little lost when the Hulk stares back at him as if asking for an explanation. The straw-chewing Jonin had learned from his colleagues in how pointless it was to give the giant long instructions. Since Kakashi had the unfortunate draw to take him as his genin team, there had been many comical and memoric highlights among the upper-tier ninjas. Like his first Ichiraku incident, the daimyo's cat, etc.
Everyone couldn't stop laughing every time it was brought up. They all joked that Naruto could even cured his incurable disease, his tardiness. It was true because he's now always on time for his genin team, knowing he would face the Hulk if he's late.
Sadly, Kakashi's problem, now part of his, is the entire arena now watches what he would do. Obviously both sides for different reasons. The invaders didn't know whom the massive green humanoid is, thus waited to see whose side it's on. Since it landed right next to the Leaf and Sand Jonin, they waited patiently to see which side it's on. Naturally, none of them wants to draw its attention, thus why no one moved. On the defensive side, however, they were all curious what Genma would say and screw things up, hence why they all waited with bated breaths. As regular of the Kakashi and Hulk Interaction Committee, Genma knew what his so-called comrades were waiting for, hence why he's sending them all his glare. They all know trying to talk to the Hulk is an up-climb challenge and sadly often backfires. The ashen-haired ex-Anbu captain was a fine example, as he got burnt many times already. Then, to Baki's disbelief, Genma gave the giant a small and short order: Hulk, smash. It certainly got the big guy's attention. 2 words was all there was. The Hulk may have still paused for a short second, but it's nevertheless a record. Genma can only sweat drop and hope that the big guy understood what he will be smashing, because leveling the whole village wouldn't be very nice when he's the one that gave the order. Seeing that he shot off in the direction of their home village, there's very little he could do now.
He may sweat dropped on the insider, but outside he's calmly chewing his straw. Either way, he feels sorry for those ninjas stupid enough to stand in the way of their Hulk. The entire exchange was seen by his opponent. Feeling a little ominous, Baki hoped Gaara can still turn the table. After all, if they are going to fight size with size, Gaara's full Biju form would win with no contest. However, Baki get the feeling there's more to the giant. Since its appearance, the atmosphere from Konoha's side seems to have changed. Can they really put so much trust upon one individual?
Author's note. This meant to be continuing on to the invasion, but as you can see, this chapter is already massive. Since so many of you wanted to see the next chapter, I decided to split the chapter. I have read many of your posts, and once again thanks for the encouragement. Unfortunately, I have to announce that there will only be 2 more chapters. I plan to end when Tsunade returns to Konoha. Currently I am running on fumes. Take the Uchiha leaving episode 1, have no idea what to do there, because with the Hulk around there's no way Sasuke could get away. Besides, I did like to keep the comedy factor going. Call this series an arc or season if you like, as it is very possible that I continue. Anyway, hope you will look forward to the next 2 chapters.
Disclaimer. Again, I do not own Naruto nor the Incredible Hulk. The story I have written is only for my own entertainment. Author's notes. It has been a long wait, but it's finally here. Unfortunately, I have been messing with a few scenes trying to find the right words and orders to write them, but I think I have held this chapter hostage long enough, so here it is. I hope it's still good enough to read. Please note that some of you may have different ideas or opinions on how I set the scenes. Maybe the story didn't go the way you expected, or something shouldn't do that. But as author, I hope you respect the way I tell my story. I do not control what you like or how you should feel, therefore I ask you to respect mine. Thank you, and enjoy the chapter. Academy Battle. Obviously, his first arrival point was right in front of Ichiraku Ramen stand. Nobody knows why the Hulk landed on that spot first. Whether he was expecting a bowl of ramen to go or just protecting his interest, no one knows. If he was to order ramen, he will be disappointed as the store is naturally closed and empty. Thanks to the tune-in exam, there weren't customers anyway, so both the father and daughter pair didn't have much to do. So when the alarm went off, the two quickly left for the hideout. Seeing that there is no one to fight and no ramen for him, the Hulk was about to take to the air again until he hears the commotion coming from the academy.
Somewhere near the academy, Iruka is in a fight for his life. Even as a chunin, it's already quite a miracle that the active academy teacher lasted this long. Had he knew he would still be ended up in active combat duty, he would have taken his personal training a little more seriously. Well, there's not much he can do about it now.
The real reason he couldn't just give up were because of the new academy student, otherwise he would have lost long ago. Only knowing what enemies would do to the kids afterwards forced him to push himself beyond his limits. Sadly, his situation will only get worse, as he knew there will be no reinforcements. Since the academy has already chunins as teachers, they were one of the first places to be evacuated. By now, most of the academy teachers would be securing the bunkers where children and civilians can stay safe and out of the way of the chaos. Therefore, most of his co-workers should already be there either as guards or assigned to protect other important buildings, especially the hospital, as many of the patients cannot easily be moved. Therefore, it's very unlikely anyone would come back to what they think should be an empty building. It just so happens that Iruka was the last to leave, thus ended up doing his final sweep, checking every classroom one after another. Thankfully, his efforts was not wasted as he found a small group in one of the rooms. Since they were all new to the academy, it's understandable how none of them know the drill. He could have missed them too, but an almost silent whimper caught his ninja-sensitive ears as he hung around to search the room. When he finally spotted them, it was a sad sight as they huddled together trying to comfort and keep one another quiet. Sadly, they were all too young and inexperienced to keep their fear down. Luckily, they were saved by the racket they made as the Shunin stayed to check the room. The enemy wouldn't be so lenient. Unfortunately, by the time he rounded them all up, a squad of enemy Chunins cut off their exits. He didn't expect them to get here so fast. They must either already in the village or the advance units. Either way, in order to keep the children safe, he decides to draw their attention. Making sure that the kids will be safe, he acted like he's on his way out, acting like he's doing his final sweep like he was doing before. After catching their attention, Iruka lured them all out to the academy grounds, making as much noise as he can on the way, by putting as much obstacle between them as he goes. All the ninjas were pissed as they had to leap over tables and shelves, sometimes scaling the mess he made. He made as much racket as he can, making sure to attract any ninja combing through the academy. The trick was not to lose them or stray too far. Besides, Iruka was uncomfortable going out of sight of academy. With no weapons, the academy teacher manages to take down 2 enemy Chunins, leaving remaining 4 to pursue him. It didn't take them long to figure out there are still children somewhere within the academy. Sadly, it was the only explanation because had Iruka wanted to, he could have got away on several occasions. That's when the fight slowly shifted to enemy's advantage. Despite home field advantage, it's still 4-1, and Iruka's making it too apparent he's trying to keep all of them with him as long as possible. He is like a wounded, dangerous animal, making others to think twice, trying to fight him head-on. Since they are all Chunins, they have fought against animals at least once or twice. Whether you succeeded in landing a blow or not, it will guaranteed take something in return. Hence, and unfortunately for him, they knew what they needed to do. As his injuries weren't light, they have took already a heavy toll on him, so they have time on their side. Sadly for Iruka, instead of the whole hide-and-seek life and death game, he is forced to play defend the fort. Konoha proud themselves in their teamwork. How irony it was he will be taken down by a gang of chunins using teamwork. The four all came at him at the same time. Should he attack one, the other three in turn would strike. It was their strategy which sadly Iruka believed Nara too would approve. What they didn't expect was for the academy to ignore them and continue his assault on his target. Iruka's plan was simple. Basic mathematics. One less enemy means just simply one less enemy to worry about. Unfortunately, the price he paid was also great, as 3 kunais stabs into him. Unknown to the good academy teacher, his heroics was witnessed by the children as they watched from the second-floor window. Despite the Chunin's instructions to keep themselves hidden, the kids couldn't handle being in the dark, thus took peeks. They all understood why he's doing it, as it was the reason why they like him. It's same as how Naruto befriended him. Every student grew more concerned for him than their own safety. That's why they all stood by the window watching the whole event. However, despite how serious it may have seemed, Iruka made sure to avoid vital and fatal injury. Only back of his arm, shoulder, and lower back were punctured. Nothing bandage and band-aid couldn't fix. He may be an academy teacher, but Iruka did take missions in the past and have sustained countless injuries. One can't be a ninja without having a few scars to show them off. Thanks to his Chunin jacket, all weapons are now jammed and struck where they are. Ignoring his pain and torn of his flesh, Iruka twisted around, followed a hard spin kick, knocking the remaining Chunins away. As much as he wishes to finish them off, he's now too injured to do so. Falling to his knees, Iruka pulled the bloodied kunai from his arm as he dragged himself to the closest ninja. He hoped to remove one more member before they can stop him. If things couldn't get any worse, 2 new and fresh teams decides to show up. Like adding salt to injury, the new arrivals happens to have some jonins, thus almost extinguish hope to almost non-existent. Checking for his own injuries, it was already tough fighting several chunins at the same time. Just how is he going to fight when jonins were added to the mix? Had he some explosive tags, he would have gladly sacrificed himself and take as many of them with him as possible. Too bad this is just the academy. He would be lucky to find some usable shinobi tools, but explosive tags were just a little too advanced and too dangerous to have around children. Thus, there is none. There were some talks of introducing seals, but were deemed unsafe, as well as too difficult, thus were dropped. Hence, how Iruka ended up pinned to the ground as the Chunins prepares to finish him off. By now, they already knew where all the children are, but instead of heading for them, they want them to see their beloved teacher executed in full view of their watchful eyes. Not only will it result in huge panic, it will also inflict trauma on their young minds. Even ninjas suffer from their first kill. This would destroy the children's future. Seeing the number of kids in the window, Konoha would definitely lose at least one generation of ninjas. As cruel as it sounds, this is typical ninja warfare. Even genins had to learn to kill targets they never wanted to, thus this is no different. Hulk entrance. Just as all hopes were lost for the kind academy teacher as jonins and chunins, something big, green, and heavy literally drops from the sky. The sudden arrival kicked up a huge amount of dust, obscuring everyone's sight as they hack and caw. Unfortunately for the foreign ninjas, the large amount of dust could not hide the horror they see before them. Despite the small dust storm running amok on the entire field, it could not hide the Hulk's intimidating form as he towers above it. It's how the ninjas spotted him as they slowly backs away. Once the scene slowly clears itself, they found some of their comrades were not so fortunate. The giant had somehow used them as some sort of landing mat, or that they were too slow to get away. Another Chunin, too, took casualty with half of his face planted in the ground. It's obvious who was responsible, as the big guy still has his fist clenched from the punch he delivered. At first they thought he was another one of Orochimaru's weird experiments, but seeing it had just taken out a few of them, he's now their #1 priority target and biggest threat. Unfortunately, the newest entrant caused a number of doubts, as well as uncertainty among the surrounding sound nins. Just trying to stop it is as troublesome as it looks, let alone try and beat it. Technically, they may be surrounding it, but none of them felt they were having the upper hand. Instead, everyone felt they were shackled with the giant because they were not allowed to retreat, Orochimaru's orders. The Chunins didn't know what to do because they weren't sure if they should flee or to attack. Sadly, their captain made their decision for them, thus started fight. Char was as far as he got before he was silenced by a kick from the green giant. He should have given his order first before starting the charge himself, because now the Chunin didn't know what they should do. They all heard him, just pretending no getting the full command as they seriously don't want to fight the big guy. Then again, they were all preoccupied by the return of their captain. The team didn't even have time to blink when the captain suddenly flew past them. Following his trajectory, they watch him crashing through a tree, then another before bouncing off the academy door. Total silence as the uncomfortable feeling fell on them. Their captain was just like a frog through into a wall. Some may not have actually seen it, but can easily picture it in their minds. Unfortunately, seeing a human being repeating the event is something they can't wipe off their minds. They kept their eyes fixed on their leader as he laid there motionless and face down. It's not just the Chunins, even the Jonins couldn't help but check the devastation. Most of them gulped loudly, wondering if they will be suffering from the same fate. Is he even alive anymore? The Chunins start murmuring among themselves. Unfortunately, the Jonins were unsympathetic. In missions, comrades die, they were used to it, no matter how gruesome it was. Hence, they followed through with the same order. They quickly took charge and snapped the Chunins out of their zone by barking new orders. Hey, get in positions. As reluctant to fight the giant as they are, the ninjas have little choice because their leader does not tolerate insubordination. Coming from the same village the Snake Sannin rules, they knew what he will do to those disobeying orders or failing their jobs. If you are lucky, you will just end up as one of his summoned sacrifice. If not, you could suffer as one of his experiments. They have all heard the poor soul's screams coming from the labs, hence why they rather face the green monster, rather than Orochimaru's operating table. It's definitely not pleasant, and not for the faint hearts, as test subjects were tortured like they were being cut open alive. Every Chunin shudders, having recalled the screams. Most of them had the misfortunes of hearing, as well as seeing during cleanup. Comparing to the Sannin, the big and green giant, packed with a ton of muscle, would still be a better choice. Despite the fact that it can probably punch you to the moon, it's better than ending up as Orochimaru's experiment. Their consolation against the giant was they are not bumping into him in the dark, as it would definitely crank up the fear level, as it would look more menacing and a lot more intimidating. It took some time to get them in line, but it was wasted as they weren't much of use anyway. The Hulk, having waited long enough, took charge and rushed into them, knocking every one of them out. Hulk clothesline! It came so sudden and at breakneck speed, it's just too fast for any normal Chunin to react. Whether they survive or not, they would at least be out of the game, because no one can walk away intact after taking the Hulk's direct hits. To say it was spectacular would have been an understatement, as the whole row of ninjas were sent spinning in mid-air at least 2 times in a 720 degrees manner before splashing down to a dead stop. As impressive as it was, only the academy teacher wasn't too pleased about his situation. There's nothing wrong with the Hulk or the way he took care of the ninjas. The kid too were all right. In fact, they were very helpful as they lead him back into the academy while preparing him for his treatment. Not that they can treat him, but they were nevertheless helpful in finding him the first aid box so he can treat himself. However, it was the aftermath that upset the good teacher. Like all other kids, the brats were too excited for their own good. They have totally forgotten all about the invasion and cheering the Hulk like little critters. Iruka wanted to admonish them, but like all his usual lectures, nobody listens. So for every ninja our green friend took down, they wowed, ooh, head and cheered as they hop with joy. The Hulk's final move was so mind-blowing that it sent the kids wild, like they were about to throttle one another. This is no longer an invasion. It had somehow turned itself into some form of entertainment. Looking back to his once old student, the role seems to have switched as he leaves everything to a genin. Hulk or no Hulk, Iruka does have mixed feelings for not lending a hand. Then again, the big guy didn't seem to need his help anyway. The children may treat this like some kind of show, but the keen-eyed academy teacher can see the Jonins were a little more troublesome to take care of. They managed to leap out of the way, so they were not out of danger yet. Unfortunately, the fight is about to get tougher as new squads decides crash the party, and they are all Jonins. Against just normal Chunins, Iruka can see how Naruto's alternative form can handle himself. The battle against Mizuki was an eye-opener, thus he was not too worried. However, going head-to-head against Jonins is another story. Just as if proving the Academy's teacher's fears, the Jonins were more experienced as they easily avoided his charge. As an ex-active operative ninja himself, Iruka knew the difference in rank very well. It was not an easy qualification to obtain, nor easy as the Shunan exam. Besides the obvious difference in experience, Jonins were more combat-oriented. Comparing Chunins to Jonins, Chunins are like stepping stone to whole new world of ninja. While Chunins are leaders in their own way, their jobs were mostly revolving around as guides or defensive measures. Missions such as Academy Teacher, Gate Guardians, and Border Patrol were examples. What they have in common are that they were not geared towards offensive combat. In order to actually becoming a Jonin, one of the main criteria is that the ninja must have at least more than one specialization. Kurenai Yuhi is a fine example as she is named Genjutsu Mistress for her prowess and mastery in the obvious art. It's one of the sole reason why the good teacher finds the rumor of his once student stood against 200 shinobis a bit far-fetched. Hulk or no Hulk, against this number of ninjas is no small feat, especially when they are not your normal everyday Jonin, but Konoha's elite unit. However, should there be a shred of truth in that rumor, then Iruka would be happy to see the miracle he's about to witness. Whether he win or lose, today he will see the truth with his own eyes and learn just how invincible they all claimed he truly was. Back on the battlefields, one by one the newly arrived Jonins silently appear and surround their target without prior orders. Obviously, their stances were to contain and hold back what they think is the threat until their leader checks out the situation. "What's the situation?" asks the newly arrival captain. "All Chunins are down. Help us secure this thing." Understood. Nothing more were being said as every Jonin had already prepared themselves. The Hulk too had waited long enough. The reason he hadn't started his rampage was because of the new ninjas. There were simply too many foreign ninjas to his liking. Those whom had attacked his old sensei, he made sure they paid the price. As for the new arrivals, he has yet to decide what to do with them. Despite the headband differences, the Hulk was not violent in nature. He may be angry but not necessarily attack everything in sight. The inhabitants from the Forest of Death were good examples, and so were the Konoha ninjas. Only those that attacked him first or irked him does he dish out the punishment, which is exactly what anyone would have done. The only difference is Hulk doing it in a wider scale. Unfortunately for the new ninjas, they didn't get that memo. So when they start to surround him, the Hulk didn't like that, thus starting to get angry again. Had they ignored him, this whole misunderstanding wouldn't have happened. Then again, they are attacking the village, so it would irked him either way, so the whole confrontation was inevitable. This was like the Konoha incident many years ago. This time there are only 3 squads compares to the previous 200 and elite Anbus ninja. Either way, it wouldn't have made much difference because not many can stop the Hulk, and the ninjas will find that out the hard way. They can use jutsus, weapons, and ninja tools. Unfortunately, they will find out everything will fail spectacularly. Fire Dragon no Jutsu! One Jonin started from a distance and used one of the most destructive jutsus known. He thought he had accomplished his task because that attack hit his target with a dead-on accuracy. Then to his shock, not even the monster's hair was singed by his fire. The Hulk snarls before rearing back his fist, before sending him one-way ticket to the academy wall. The others have to revise their tactics quickly because the Hulk is now looking more hostile than he was before. If fire element doesn't work, perhaps lightning will. Lightning release? Lightning spear? Another jutsu was fired as the giant raised his arm to defend himself. Lightning conduct electricity, thus no matter how hard you tried to yourself, Without any insulation, you will just light up like a lightning rod. He knew the jutsu was working as electricity ran amok all over the massive giant. When it was over, all it did was a little sizzling where it had hit, and the Hulk gave it a look, then little scratch before glaring back at the Jonin. Obviously, lightning too had little effect. It only served to annoy him. Bad, ninja hit Hulk, Hulk angry. The little guy seemed like he wanted to protest because there's hardly a scratch. Too bad the Hulk doesn't listen to excuses, hence how he had the ninja in his grasp before the Jonin realizes it. The Hulk isn't just fast, he is also a very long reach, thus why the ninja couldn't even defend himself. Sadly, his complaints were the least of his problems as the Hulk threw him like a javelin, sending him screaming all the way to the Hawkage Monument. The ninjas weren't idle as one made it to the roof, hoping for a successful ambush. He smirked. Monster or no monster, they have the same weakness like all other humans. From the look of it, the Jonin could be right as the Hulk was ignorant for threats above him. However, the ninja was seen by the children from the academy as they shout and scream, hoping to catch their savior's attention. Unfortunately, they got his attention all right. The only issue is they got his attention focused on solely them. Then again, you can't completely fault the Hulk this time for his confusion. Even an adult would be confused as the kids each were doing their signs, trying signal. There's an ambush. Some just simply pointing upwards, which lead our giant looking into the sky trying to figure what's there. Another odd one was the kid spinning himself like a dog trying to catch its tail. The Hulk's definitely lost. You know why? Because he was looking back dumbly as he scratched his head with his index finger. As always, trying to give him the details will only have the reverse effects. The two, Iruka and Kakashi, with the misfortune of teaching him, could give you a 1,000-page report telling you what not to do as they had their fair share of problem handling him. So instead of seeing the ambush, he was more focused on the children, still trying to make heads and tails what they want. Frustrated, some proceeds to hop up and down trying to push their hands as high as they can. That's how others came to see the odd scene of one giant hopping strangely with his hands raised. Like the other comical scenes in the past, he's imitating them, following them move for move, beat for beat like it's some kind of new dance routine. All this was not lost by the ambushing ninja, as he too saw the spectacle. He can only chuckle inwardly. As funny as it seemed, he still have a job to do as he readies his katana. He will thank them afterwards as they made his job a lot easier. Iruka had to watch the entire spectacle, only turned to confusion by the Hulk's strange behavior. The kids were as loud as they were rowdy, so Iruka learned to ignore them and concentrate on impending danger as well as the battlefield below. He only understood the situation a little too late as he finally turns to his charges. The academy teacher was lost for words, as he had no expression to describe his current dilemma. He wasn't if he should cry or just laugh because clearly they are a distraction, and he couldn't stop them. Thankfully, it turns out it wasn't such a big deal after all, as the Hulk couldn't be ambushed that easily. So without even looking, his hand reaches out and caught the ninja like anyone would catch an apple by reflex. It was an unfortunately learning experience for the Jonin, as he had to see how good an instinct this massive giant have within him. The Hulk only turned his head to see what it was before flinging it away, sending the poor ninja head first to the wall. Iruka's sweat dropped. Only the Hulk can accomplish something so incredible as causally as he had. Then again, he really have to do something about his kids, as this show of unnatural prowess only hyped the children up all over again. Did you see that? How does he do that? Amazing. So cool. They all had a good laugh seeing their friendly giant tossing the ninja away with disinterest. Like all children, they imitate his actions, like it was yesterday's television show. Back down on the battlefield, it's another one of their ninja fallen. The group had been watching with bated breath, hoping one of them could succeed with at least one hit on the giant. Had the children not done such a fine job, they would have tried something to keep the monster giant off their ninja themselves. Anyway, despite the lack of success, they didn't let a window of opportunity to slip by without doing anything. In fact, 2 Jonins were already in position. Just as they thought the fight was over, they were reminded there are still ninjas on the field. However, what they didn't expect was two hidden ninjas bringing their trap. Without even the giant knowing, they quickly wrapped ninja wires around its wrist before speeding from one another. It was like a blur as the two ninjas meet and crosses in front of the Hulk. Surprisingly, our green friend is still clueless as it happened just too fast while perfectly executed. Had they directed their assault on him, it would have ended differently, hence how they managed to through his defenses. The two continue their course, dragging and pulling the line away from one another. Like a show of their acrobatic skills, they dive and sprung horizontally around the base of the tree, secretly wrapping their ends of the ninja wires securely to the biggest tree they found. Amazingly, the two finished almost at the same time by wrapping the line around their gloved hand before tightening their grip with added chakra. The Hulk would have applauded had he not found his hand caught by the line. The two can only smirk, seeing the dumb turn angry look from the monster. Their job is as good as done. They could offer it to Orochimaru as experiment and get a bonus afterwards. The giant can tug as much as it want because it wouldn't budge. They had made sure to use as many ninja wires as they have on them. It's no wonder why they were so confident, as one wire could hold even the strongest ninja. Hence, when they were combined into the thickness of a steel cable, you can imagine how strong they are. It's the same technique used in making the strongest bridges, hence why they were so proud of themselves. Unfortunately, this only served to piss the Hulk off, as he doesn't like to be tied up like an animal.
Had this been any normal ninja, they may have already completed their mission, but sadly the one they are fighting is no ninja. Even to this day, the Anbus from Konoha had yet figure out what can actually stop their Hulk. They had watched him through the years, and time it amazes them, hence why today's no different. Back on the fields, the two Jonins were about to find out just foolish they were for attaching themselves to the line. They may think they have already won, but truthfully the Hulk had yet to truly use his power. It was unnatural, it was unbelievable, raw power and strength as the giant forcefully pulled back his arms. Comically, like everything connected with a string, the two ninjas were instantly dragged to the ground. They should have thought better than securing the line to themselves.
Unfortunately, it had not ended there, as when sudden force was applied to the bottom, the top would naturally tip over. Hence how the timbers ended up crashing on top of the two idiotic ninjas. Ignoring the two, the Hulk proceeded to rip the ninja wires off angrily. To the shock of those watching, the wires made from toughest material were torn apart like paper.
To explain, the Hulk's muscle is similar to a car with an accelerator. The car can be rolled off or just slowly moving. It's almost the same as the Hulk not using his muscles. For those with medical knowledge, let's not be too technical, as this is just an analogy. So when the ninjas held him by the ropes, ninja wires, our friend has not been using any of his powers.
Hence, when he actually pulls, that's when an accelerator was used. Naturally, for the Hulk, the level of his acceleration was yet known, as no one can truly test just how strong he is and how much power he can exert. Then there's also the possibility of turbo or the overdrive, where his anger issues kicks in. Or maybe a glimpse of Red Hulk, which only Sakura may have witnessed.
Apparently, after he was down during the Forest of Death incident, his usual green skin turned slightly red, but at the time Sakura only thought it was a trick of her eye, thus dismissing it. It immediately caught the interests of several concerned members, as they highly believe it's Kyuubi's involvement because it has the similar color as the Bijuu's chakra. As much as they wishes to verify this, no one is allowed to experiment on the poor boy. Jiraiya was equally reluctant, as his godson's other self seems to dislike him with passion. By this time the Hulk has had enough. Enemy or no enemy, no one messes with the Hulk. Instead of figuring out which ones are the enemy, he's now just charging on all of them. He was reluctant because in the past he had destroyed many buildings as well as injuring a lot of his GG's ninjas, hence he's a little worried bashing every ninja he sees. In fact, those ninjas keeping tabs on him can tell you he had never initiated any kind of offense, but he sure hell can finish it. It was only thanks to this he got a little peace within the village and started to get used to it. The children in the village was a strange bunch, but for some reason they soothes him. Watching them play happily and peacefully only made him feel tranquilly inside. Hence when these ninjas appear and despite the order, smash, he still hesitated. However, there's always a limit and now restraint is over because he's fairly certain they are here to destroy his serenity, therefore it's unforgivable. The ninjas all thought he was dumb and stupid because of his size, so all they have to do is watching their distance. Somehow they were wrong. The phase, the bigger they are, the clumsier they get, doesn't seem to apply big, green and muscular guys. Despite its surprising speed, the Jonins did not panic. So far all they have done were to cripple or trying to contain it, hence less lethal means were used. As their leader expresses certain interest in special bloodlines, they had hoped to secure such fine specimen for him. Since they can't, it would be considered less troublesome. They will have to kill it as the invasion is still their #1 priority. Hence before the Hulk moves to offense, they had already reached the same decision. So when the Hulk charges, despite their initial shock they quickly react with their jutsus in order to summon fire and wind before sending it its way. It's an advanced elemental combo as the fire element will be boosted, thus making it burn more fiercely as well as more deadly. They didn't leave everything to chance either as one ninja pulled out a custom-made, demon shuriken. Besides its oddly huge size, it has also additional rotational blades guaranteed to shred everything or anything in its path. A normal, demon shuriken, can cut down trees, no doubt this is much more powerful and even more deadly.
So when the so-called monster starts charging, other ninjas fall back while the assault team follows through their plan. Its speed may be astonishing, but the ninjas nevertheless did their parts as two Jonins combined their jutsus successfully before sending it at the giant. As the one holding the demon shuriken, he wasn't idle as he pumped chakra to start the blades before throwing it after the blaze. They knew it had hit its mark when it explodes violently.
However, what they hadn't anticipated was the giant's huge smoking frame rushing through the explosion. The fires only made him more intimidating, like he's an actual demon coming right out of hell. Not to forget the demon shuriken, as it struck true on its left chest.
The ninja had expected the blades to start shredding, but instead the blades got jammed on the flesh. Even if it was a split second, he could see them digging into the giant's meat but never drew blood. Despite the weapon's failure, it didn't even slow the thing down. All it manages to accomplish was bouncing off and flying into the nearby wall. He can't call it a defect as it does cut into hardened concrete. Unfortunately for the ninja, as he didn't have time to think about his return policy, just as the Hulk plows into them. The Hulk is like an unstoppable train running through them. The unbelievable shock and look were still on their faces when they were sent flying. If others thought he was rough before, they will have to fix their poll again because nothing can stop an angry Hulk. Too bad after this no one would be able to vote anymore. Naturally, it was quickly over. Against the normal Hulk, none of them had a chance. However, against an angry Hulk, a massacre would have been a better description. Only everyone's still alive. Even those falling back couldn't escape his sudden assault. One such member was caught by the foot as he attempted to leap away. The giant proceeds to slam back to ground before finishing him off with a stomp. The obvious ninja could not get back up again as he was at least 1 feet deep into the academy grounds. It was instant chaos. Ninjas have no times to plan as they all fought at once. Another example was one ninja getting through and stabbing him in the guts. Like all missing nins finding out the hard way, their puny weapons couldn't cut into him. The kunai may have some significant value because he's stare in shock of his broken blade. It didn't matter anyway, as he's literally 6 inches under by another casualty of his deadly stomps.
Like true ninjas, they didn't give up, but it's inevitable as one by little all they have accomplished so far was reducing their own numbers. The trouble was, they never ran out of jutsu, so they try all of them until one that works. Only problem was, they are running out of ninjas before they ran out of jutsus. In the end only one member was left dragging the giant's arm. He was probably trying to stop him or slowing him down. He was mercilessly slammed into a nearest tree before being kicked through it.
Unstoppable.
Once the academy area is clear, the Hulk gave Iruka a nod before leaping off to find other ninjas to smash. With his hearing and super leap into the air, he found the unlucky team heading to the hospital. Taking another leap, he was on his way. The ninjas never saw it coming as he came down like a dead weight, literally nailing down a few unfortunate invaders. No one figured out how the Hulk always accurately land on his marks. Take his landing spot near the ramen stands. They managed to outline the spot and put floor signs to keep everyone out. Some thinks it may have something to do with his luck, as some unfortunate Anbus found out the hard way after showing the kid how to play. They had only just taught him and he ended up winning everything, then spending it all on ramen. A few ninjas believed it may have been because of his difficult life, as whatever deity watching over him is making reparations. Not many believes it, but it helped to smooth things out with the Anbus who had lost all their money. Since they happens to be the team that watches over him and failed to protected him, it shall be part of their apology. Even now they still treat the kid to ramen but never again gambled against him. Coming back to the invasion, after landing, the Hulk challenged the invaders by roaring around him. "Ah!" He stopped on one inexperienced ninja as he too was screaming back, "Ah!" but more in fright than a challenge. The poor fool was so shocked and scared that he forgot to run or keep his distance like the rest of his squad. Well, you can't blame him for being surprised when such monstrosity came out of nowhere and start roaring in your face. Too bad he couldn't cramp his mouth shut in time, because the Hulk grabbed and sent him out of the village like a javelin. The poor fool couldn't stop screaming as he travels and exits the village via Hulk air. It was so sudden and over very fast, the rest of the group couldn't help but follow his trajectory to see where their comrade would end up. "Captain, I don't think Dachi ever came down from his trip." Their leader couldn't believe his own eyes either, and God knows where and when his subordinate will end up. From as far as what he could see, the poor guy wouldn't be landing anytime. Based on both his speed and trajectory, he could end up outside of Fire Country, and everyone knows just how big the country is. That's when the group realized they have forgotten about something, which happens to be the very green monster that sent their colleague away. They turn around just in time for the Hulk to shoulder charge into them. The group managed a short cry just before they were sandwiched into one another before being rushed into the wall.
Like they were constantly feeding him victims, another unfortunate squad came to a screeching halt just as he steps out of the Hulk-shaped hole wall. They happens to come into view as the giant pulls himself out from the collapsing wall. The captain almost got himself trampled when he tries to hold back his team. Seeing the big guy standing to his full height and completely overshadowing them was one fantastic sight. The word intimidating is just not enough to explain just how scared they were. The leader had to cup one of his Chunin's mouth to prevent him from screaming out loud. Seeing they have yet to draw its attention, they may still have a chance to back away before the huge monster sees them. Sadly, they never got the chance to disappear as the entire team froze to find the big muscled giant locked eyes on them. Somehow their leader thought they could still savage this, thus ordering his men to stay quiet and act like they were friendlies.
That's when the group did a double take, because they could never imagine their meanest, baddest looking captain with a face full of scars can smile with such an innocence. For a brief moment, the commander flashed them the deadliest death glare to get them play along or else. Seeing that it wasn't a joke, the whole group light up with the biggest and brightest smiles they could. It worked and no surprises there. Even the Hokage would do a double take when a weird group of ninjas synchronizes their smiles while they are looking at you.
As for the Hulk, it was more confusing because he had been bashing ninjas having the same headband, hence how he classifies them as someone bashable. Since they were not attacking and acting very weird, the Hulk ended up staring at them dumbly. In his mind, he's still switching from booting them out of the village to curiously finding out what they will do.
Unfortunately for the leader of the team, the ninjas in the back starts to have their own conversation. "I can't believe that ridiculous plan somehow worked," say the Chunin in the left without losing the smile. Guess what they say is true: the bigger they are, the dumber they get. Both chuckled, seeing how stupid the giant must have looked. The two kept their serene looks as they continues to make snide remarks of the Hulk. Only when the ninja sandwiched between the two squeakily point out the giant seems to be able to hear and understand them did they turn to confirm their horrors. That's when the two realizes their own mistakes, because the Hulk is now glaring menacingly at them. Friend or foe, no one insults the Hulk. They probably know that by now.
Knowing his one-time lucky and witty plan was wasted, the captain orders his team to charge. The battle was short-lived because the Hulk just plows into them, hitting them like a bowling ball striking bowling pins at Mach 1 speed. Naturally, the group had no means to stop that, and thanks to their previous squeeze together, and Smile Planet hinders them. Hence, when the muscle giant crashes into them, the team were sent flying all over the place. Konoha Timber. Not far from the battle, another unfortunate team of Oto Nins too watched the exchange, thus was about to flee when they were spotted like a deer caught in the headlight by the giant. Naturally, he used his Hulk Leap special and came crashing in the middle of the group. They can run, but 2 to 3 Chunins were still caught under him. The others tries to back away, but they were taken out by one wide backhand swing. It could have been called back arm swing because it was his arm that knocked them out. The Hulk's reach was so far, his entire arm is like a steel beam swinging at them. Those whom were lucky enough not to be anywhere near would have wished they were taken out the same way. As one by one, the Hulk picked them off and literally threw them out of the village. The even more unluckier ones, they were sent directly to the Hawkage monument like darts on a dartboard. At least the Hulk knew not to aim them at the 4 Hawkage's faces. Unfortunately for these ninjas, they will be there for a while as the Hulk sent them there with full power. Hence one can imagine their condition and how much effort to get them off it. Since Konoha improved their building structures up to Hulk standard, they were extra durable, hence how they can withstand ninjas stupid enough to throw themselves into one. There's even an advertisement on the said wall, as the unfortunate Oto Jonin was threw into. Just before passing out, he reads, "New Konoha Timber, extra strong, extra durable, Hulk standard." He had an enlightened smile as if just solving a difficult puzzle as he laid there. Somehow, the CEO of the construction company had the great idea to use the Hulk as their marketing strategy, while testing its new research and design. Having found ways to make their timber stronger by infusing them with a little charca as they grow, they discovered ways to make them stronger and sturdier. As test, they decided to hire the giant himself to see if they got the materials right, hence the Hulk's involvement. After seeing his huge frame, the director was so impressed he worked out a contract with the Hawkage. They wants to borrow his image. As per agreement, the company is willing to offer Konoha special discounts when hired by the village. It was one of the reasons the third happily accepted the deal. Besides saving the village some expenses, the other reason is Naruto can get a little extra spending money, so the Sandame sees no downsides to the benefit. Hence how they got the pictures of the Hulk like it was genuinely approved by him. For this reason, it's how the Hulk was known outside of Konoha. But most people just thinks it's a stunt made by the marketing people, because there's no such thing as big green monsters. Right? Thanks to this deal, Konoha gets extra discount in building materials, as well as remodeling cost. It's a win-win for all parties. Aside from the extra durable factor, people like the way the company projects themselves. An example would be another advert where a broken bench is shown, whereas another taken by the Hulk as he reads the Konoha Times. Obviously, the one used by the Hulk is made by Konoha Timber, whereas the broken one just an ordinary bench. Those that knew the Hulk were laughing up a storm because they all knew he doesn't know how to read. Then again, the Hulk had the paper upside down, so most people got the joke anyway. They decided not to correct him due to amusement. Overall, the company received a lot of good critics for their creative innovation. In general, with the Hulk as figurehead, the company got many new orders. Ongoing invasion. By the time most invaders found out how futile it was to fight the giant, many started to retreat. Unfortunately, they found most of their paths were blocked by Konoha ninjas. Now they realize why it was so easy to break into the village. Somehow, they let them in only to box them inside. Unknown to the invading ninjas, every Konoha ninja learned not to get in the Hulk's way. So knowing both Suna and Sound ninjas were heading in his direction, they just let them through and give the big guy something to do. It's like fueling a fire, you need material to keep it burning so it wouldn't die out. If the ninjas wants a fight, who is to stop them going to their funeral? That's how most of the new arrivals found themselves confronted by some of their invasion team running their way. One screamed as he ran past, "Run! He's got a tree!" Surprised by the odd warning, they thought they heard it wrong. He's got a what? Some even laughed at the stupidity because Konoha ninjas were often nicknamed tree huggers. Thus they couldn't help but snicker at the warning. One couldn't hold it in and laughed back. Of course they do. They are tree huggers. Before laughing at his own joke.
However, their humor was not shared among others when they came face to face with something that sent every one of them flying. They didn't get the chance to find out what it was. Only the captain and the more veteran ninjas managed in time to defend themselves with their katanas. Too bad they didn't have the power to stop it, thus the whole squad were sent flying out of the invasion. On their way in the air, did anyone see what hit us? If they die from this, they want to know what killed them. Luckily one attentive member of their group saw what it was. It was a tree cap. The captain and other Jonins didn't forget to send a glare at the pair of Chunins. They should have listened to the warnings and not making stupid jokes on an actual mission. Their punishment would be D-rank missions and sewage cleanup if they ever survive the flight. While the rest of the team too were in pain during mid-flight by Hulk Airways, they too were glaring daggers at the newbies. The Chunins wanted to protest it wasn't their fault because it would probably happen either way, but they knew better to say anything now.
Somewhere on top of the academy, another home run for the Hulk was heard. It seems after their little rescue and the Hulk on the battlefield, the kids all moved to the roofs of the academy in order to get a better view of their village's defenses. Of course their sensei Iruka openly protested and urged them to get to the village bunkers.
However, the so-called brats of his students argued that this was the best opportunity to see the ninjas in action and up close. Since he often preached the will of fire, and how shinobis defend their homes, they now have the front row seat and life chance opportunity to see what it means to be a ninja. Even Iruka can't argue against that statement knowing how true those words are. However, deep down the good teacher knew they weren't there to support Konoha ninjas. In fact they were mostly likely wanted to watch and cheer for the Hulk in action. Especially after hearing all the stories of a giant beating bears, monsters as well as missing nins from the younger generation. Most children talk about what they hear in Naruto as the Hulk was among the #1 topics. Iruka knew his ex-student personally. The blonde is like a trouble magnet. He can even cause trouble without doing anything, and that was before his transformation. Now with his Hulk body, the boy attracts trouble like bees to honey, and his accomplishments were no less amazing.
The Chunin had to give in as another student convinced him there are nowhere more safe than staying where they are. His reason being that they are safer near the Hulk than anywhere else. Sadly, he had to again agree with the future generation of Nara as Iruka couldn't find any argument to counter the boy coming from a clan of Brainiac. In the end, he too stayed as the children brought along their scoreboard saying something about keeping records. The scarred-faced teacher had to sigh as he too joins them on the roof.
Another reason why Naruto liked his teacher, as after a while the Chunin too joins them in counting and recording the number of foes the Hulk's taking out. They even made a scoreboard and gave names for each takedown, e.g. home run with the tree, a field kick when he punt them out of the village, etc. Of course when Iruka present the academy's report later that day, the Hokage couldn't help but stare at the academy teacher funny. He didn't know if he should laugh or just scold him. Especially at the names they gave to the Hulk's contribution for the village. Kakashi and Sasuke's arrival.
Back in the arena, Baki and Genma were still locked in their own stare-down waiting for the other to make the first move. So far they were fixed in some kind of mental combat, picturing each other's next move, and countering them. If looking closely, a small twitch here and a shift in balance shown just what the other was thinking.
It may sound stupid and dumb, but this is one of those high-level combat situations that could end in an instant. Any experienced expert can tell you how rare this is, as both combatants have to be equally powerful, experienced and skilled for this to occur. Anyway, it was a stalemate and the tension was broken by one of the Suna ninjas shooting over their heads screaming. Baki was very surprised as the ninja was flying in the direction to Suna. It wasn't long later followed by a few more as they too sail over them. He stares back at his opponent hoping for an explanation, but Genma only smirked in response and said only, "Nice weather." Deep down the straw-chewing Konoha ninja couldn't help but grin internally. He only wished he was there to see it. Thanks to the Hulk taking part in the fight, it would only be a matter of time the giant literally kicks everyone's ass. He laughed at how they used to make bets what technique he would use on his next opponent. It was kind of like brainwashing, as they gave the impressionable boy some videos of fights or video games to see if he would use any of the moves. It all started thanks to some jokers introducing Naruto to the wonders of wrestling, thus from time to time one of the moves came up. Like he did with Mizuki, that spinning pile driver thingy was bloody lethal and almost the whole village felt the tremor. New cannon or no new cannon, they don't deserve such treatment. The Hokage threatened to lock those up after he heard someone wanted to show Naruto the video game, Mortal Kombat. Thankfully the boy turned out alright and the Hulk wouldn't go too far on his victims. It's the reason why the invaders were only flying over their heads instead of being ripped into pieces. Baki's now a little worried because they may have bitten more than they could swallow, as he recognized some those were Suna's best. Another cause of concern was this was only the beginning of the invasion.
That was when Kakashi and Sasuke decides to show themselves in the arena, turning to Germa. "Are we late?" The Jonin didn't answer but gave them both his deadpanned look. "Does it matters anymore?" The veteran ex-Anbu captain blinked in surprise. Did Genma just answered his question with a question?
Raising an eyebrow, it only took a moment for him to see there's a lot more competitors on the field. He would have thought it's some kind of Royal Rumble, had he not seen the chaos everywhere. Genma's relaxed stance made him thought they were still in the exams. Sadly, once he took in the whole surrounding did he realize there's an invasion going on. Shit, it's an invasion. Sasuke, defend the village. Again Genma was not impressed. Most of them have been fighting for nearly an hour, and seeing how many bodies the Hulk threw over their heads, the invasion may come to an end pretty soon. Then again, it was especially lame when Jonin was not only late, he orders his equally late genin to fight after everyone's all fired up and locked serious combat. The two wouldn't be winning any popularity points anytime. Unfortunately, Sasuke did not think defending the village was worthy of his time. He thinks an Uchiha should lead an attack, conquering battles while dominating them. Hence he chooses to chase after Gaara because he knew he's the strongest genin, besides their match was overdue. After finding out where his siblings took him from his classmates, he speed off after the trio. It was for this reason other genins were sent after him, because they knew exactly how dangerous the Jinchuriki is. Tail Beast Shukaku. As the group of genins chases after the last Uchiha, they came across Jonins before finally meeting up with him. Sadly, Sasuke has his own plans, thus ignored their warnings, leaving them to fight the Sand siblings. It didn't take Sasuke long to get his wish as he stopped to face Gaara.
In the beginning, Sasuke thought he has the upper hand. He knew he's faster as well as more skilled, thus it's only a matter of time. Besides, there's also his ace Chidori. Having worked on it for a month gave him the illusion he could defeat even his transformed teammate.
As the fight progresses, Sasuke begins to doubt himself. Gaara may be inferior to him by speed and skill, but he closed that gap with his superior defense. Normally Sasuke could have exploited that because he had watched Lee's match. However, when Gaara starts to add transformation to his arm, the advantage shifted. Now the Sand Genin had both superior defense as well as superior offense. That one hit easily destroy the tree, then there's the whip-like arm that could extend into the distance. It's making him feel like a fly waiting to be swatted, hence why it's pissing him off. Why is everyone getting a transformation for extra boost of power but him? This isn't some superhero comic or a movie. The whole ordeal made his Chidori look cheap, like parlor tricks, no different to a light show. It may be deadly, but Gaara's arm made his ace obsolete, as his jutsu couldn't get through his arm. Only his pride as an Uchiha made him stood his ground. He told himself Gaara is no Hulk, so he told himself the fight wouldn't end in the same way. However, despite it's not Hulk, it does pack a hell of a backhand, and very fast too. In one swing it easily sent the prideful Uchiha knocked out into the tree. Sakura was lucky Sasuke happens to be sent her way so she can silently take him away. Seeing the crazy look from the insomniac genin only made her more sure to back away, then voicing out her thoughts. It turned out to be a wise decision, as without further distraction Gaara proceeds to transform to his full Biju mode. Once it's finished, Shukaku laughed loudly. Yeah, I am free. I am free. I am FFFFRRRREEEEEEE. It must have been pretty excited hearing it repeating the same words thrice. Like a true beast that's just broke itself out from years of captivity, the Aikibi let loose a thunderous roar, letting every ninja know he's finally out. Naturally, it turned every shinobi's head, including the Hulk's. Even from the distance, thanks to its colossal size, everyone from a higher ground can see it. Somewhere within the village, ninjas were dropped like rag dolls. Apparently they were victims of our resident giant. They were dropped like old toys, like a kid discovering a new toy. Unfortunately, this theory seems very likely as the Hulk leaps in the direction of the Aikibi. It's safe to guess its colossal size poses some form of challenge, hence his sudden interest. The Hulk may have fought summons and Orochimaru, nearly gotten himself killed in the process. However, the Snake Sanin's style of constant dodging and avoiding a direct fight made him look weak in the Hulk's eyes. Then there's also Jiraiya, the Hulk's still angry at his antics, therefore both were considered puny Sanins to him. So obviously when the Aikibi showed up, the Hulk naturally wants to fight it. It only took a few leaps to clear the village, but on his way he unknowingly took out another Orochimaru's snakes. This was witnessed by Ibiki and his team as they were preparing to hold the line by defending the village wall. After giving a hearty speech and ordering every ninja to do whatever it takes to stop it from breaking through, the group faces the inevitable. Just as it draws closer and the tension reaching its peaks, the Hulk crashes between them by landing on top of the summon before going his way. It was anticlimactic, but at least they didn't have to fight the big-ass snake. Only Ibiki thought the green giant was being rude for not acknowledging them. You can still hear Hulk leap shouts as he hop his way, disappearing into the distance. Since he's heading for the Aikibi, Ibiki forgave him. Still, there's an awkward silence as the shinobis step forth and stare down at the unfortunate snake. The last thing they saw before it dispels itself was two huge footprints. Somehow on a snake it is very noticeable. It would probably serve as reminder whom actually kicked its ass. Then again, the poor snake wouldn't know about this until someone points it out. Sadly, it's very eye-catching, hence instead of looking it in the eye, they will be forced to stare in the footprint. Giant Raccoon versus the Hulk. So when the Hulk drops from the heavens, Shukaku raised an eyebrow because this doesn't look like any normal human it's had ever seen. It was like a showdown between two titans, only one not so titan as the other because he is much smaller than the other. The uncomfortable silence was broken by one's declaration as it points his finger at his opponent. Hulk fight big rat. His first sentence already pissing the opposition off. I am Shukaku, a raccoon not a rat. I will make you eat those words. Thus the battle commences with the so-called raccoon firing its water shots. Whether the words got through is another story because everyone knows the Hulk is rather scatterbrained. Regardless what anyone thinks, the Hulk was never one to back down from a fight or a challenge. To show he isn't weak, he backhanded the first shot while leaping over the second before charging for the inevitable clash. He easily avoided the other projectiles running in zigzag formations. His wide strides easily puts him away from the blast zones. Having so far missed his target, Shukaku did not bat much of an eye, treating this newcomer another insignificant ant to his freedom. As soon as he's in range, he rears back its massive paw before lashing out on his target. Thanks to its size, even his normal punch would seem like a flying mansion crashing down on you. Its power isn't to be taken lightly, neither as its effect can be felt all the way to Konoha. If he wanted their attention, he has already all the ninjas on the wall as they stared back in shock by the tremor. There's no way any of them can stop that power without another mountain-sized summon or Biju. Then again, Konoha has their Hulk as they knew he's fighting for them. Seeing the Biju firing projectiles and swinging its paw reassured them their Hulk had started their fight. They may not see him from this distance, they all knew it's him. Since his disappearance, Konoha is pretty convinced he's as invincible as he appears to be. Even with his monstrous size, he still attracts the children and protected them. He's becoming a village mascot without himself knowing. He does occasionally bringing in missing nin even if it's for ramen, so it's natural how so many shinobis have such faith in him. Coming back to the fight, and despite the aftermath of the devastation, the Hulk is still very much alive. In fact, he avoided the pulverizing punch by leaping over it. Taking advantage of stairway of an arm, he took the opportunity to use it to get closer to his intended target. So once he is in position and in front of Shukaku's shocked face, he delivered a super haymaker. To say it isn't devastating would be an understatement, as it literally blew half of the Aikibi's face off. Obviously such noteworthy event can be seen all the way from Konoha's walls as Konoha ninjas cheer, whereas Sunas were shocked to the core. Even their case cage had trouble dealing with Shukaku, hence their disbelievable expression. Unfortunately, it's still too eerily to start celebrating, as a Biju is only a chakra construct. Even without a piece of its face, it's not dead, as Shikuka only felt a little disorientation as its face slowly rebuilt itself. Therefore, even if its jaw was blown to bits, it can still reform. Sadly, all Shikuka felt was a slight disorientation as its face slowly rebuilt itself. It's already starting to search for the one responsible.
Despite his size, the little giant packed hell of a punch. It blew apart its natural form, thus why the one-tail's angry. While its face can still reform, it wants payback from the little green giant. The human village can wait, as this is personal. The Hulk may be thick-headed, but he's not stupid. As the two locked eyes, the Hulk snarls simply because his perfect shot did no lasting damage. You don't need a genius to figure out how ineffective that was. Taking one last long look at the giant behemoth, the Hulk took off and disappears into the woods. It took only a few seconds for the sand raccoon to think the humanoid must have chickened out. "You bastard, come back and fie!" It was interrupted by a hit to its forehead. Not knowing what it was, it raised its huge paws to scratch the spot, only to find a tree falling out.
If its face made of sand is able to show colors, it would have turned pretty red with furious anger. Unfortunately for the giant raccoon, its humiliation did not end there, as a volley of trees came one after another, striking in various parts of its body. Since Shukaku's body consists mainly of sand, the projectiles seemed shot harmlessly into its body. However, for the Biju itself, it knew it would take considerable effort to break into its chakra body, but like the small giant's punch, it easily penetrated through. It is what made it furious, as it's another slap to its pride, because Shukaku's well known for its superior defense thanks to its sand element. The attack hadn't ended there, as Shukaku felt something slamming into its foot. It's like one wave after another. What now? As annoying as it be, the Aikibi couldn't help but turning its huge head to the source. Obviously it's same tiny giant that looked like he's trying to push his foot. The sight was so amusing and comical that the Biju almost forgot all its anger.
As for the Hulk, after shooting a few projectiles, he knew it does not have the obvious effect like it usually have on ninjas. Hence how he decided to go old school, thus charging in himself. Despite his mass and acceleration, laws of physics, force equals mass x acceleration, he found himself slamming into its foot, and yet not moving an inch.
One may ask why he didn't just smash the leg like he had done against the Biju's face. The effect would have been the same anyway. Then again, one must understand this is the Hulk and he isn't much of a thinker. His obvious goal was to bring down his opponent, hence why he's going for a tackle instead of simply smash. Unfortunately, it was heavier and sturdier than he had thought, thus how it had not moved. Yet he didn't give up as he continues in his path. If he can't knock it out, he will have to take the support with him. By channeling his power to his legs, hips and upper body, he proceed to grab on and push. The Hulk's fully intended to take the foot with him if he has to. If anyone is close enough, they will see his muscles expand much bigger than usual, as huge green veins appearing. Not just his body, his feet too sank into the ground as he continues to dish out the might of the Hulk. Seconds later it starts to move as an inch of drag marks can be seen. Slowly the drag marks start to increase from inch to feet then meter. Like riding a bike, the first push is hard, but once it gets going the rest is easy. Gaara's Biju was amused when it first sees the attempt. It didn't expect the stupid humanoid to be able to move him. Unconsciously Shukaku switches its center of gravity to make sure he had zero chance in moving him. It felt smirk and would have laughed at the sorry sight. That's until its world suddenly tips over as gravity takes effect. Like standing on one leg on ice and someone tips your foot, the Aikibi quickly loses its balance. It was devastating as it came down, splashing forest dirt and some of it broken sand all over the greenery.
If that's not bad enough, the mini giant leaped on its face and proceeded to pummeling away. This is seriously getting old and very annoying fast, plus the punches aren't weak either. For every attack the mini giant delivers, chips a piece of its face. Even if it's made of pure chakra, it's still troublesome to fix.
Therefore just anyone would deal with an annoying fly. The Aikibi catches the Hulk then tosses him away. The power of a Biju is indeed frightening, as a normal causal throw is Titan class. It sent his foe crashing through mountains, through trees after another going at Mach speed before disappearing into the distance. Luckily our green friend managed to pull himself upright as he fight against the force that threw him this far. By using both hands and feet on whatever he can hold on, he left a huge and long drag mark as well as numbers of broken trees before pulling himself to a stop. Scowling at the fact he was thrown this far, the Hulk made his way back the direction he came. The Aikibi did not make the trek easy as it sprays multiple and more powerful water bombs his way.
It would be simply too many to dodge, and the Hulk was angry at himself, thus he ignored them, charges through the explosions. Clenching through his teeth, the Hulk rushes through, charging like an unstoppable train. This humanoid is starting to piss it off. Thus Shukaku too charges its Baya Bomb. Having fought for a short amount of time, it starts to understand how the little green human thinks.
Knowing he would not deviate from his course, the bomb will finish him off once and for all. It will only take a few seconds to complete, plenty of time before he can even get close. Just one of his supercharged bomb, it can swallow up a village. Hence no matter where you run, you cannot outrun the blast zone. The Hulk seems to see the danger, thus picked up his speed by putting extra spring in each of his leaps. Each covering even bigger distance than the other. That's how he arrived back in front of surprised Raccoon. Hulk uppercut. Everyone's sweat dropped knowing the move looked suspiciously like something out of Street Fighter S. Shin Ryuken. Those with telescopes and binoculars all turn their stares at one of the Eternal Gate Guard, Katetsu. Yes, there it is. Ha ha ha, laughed the Chunin as he cheered with his fist raised like his team just scored a goal. Now, Azumo owns me 500 Ryo. Obviously the two had been betting which moves the impressionable boy would use. It can be safe to assume they were the ones responsible corrupting the blonde youth with video games as well as wrestling shows. What? Rest please the Chunin, he didn't see anything wrong here. The Hokage said not to let him play Mortal Kombat, he never said anything about Street Fighter. They all rolled their eyes knowing it was true, then again it was hell of an uppercut anyway as it did blew away the Biju's entire head. It took seconds for the raccoon's head reform itself, by then the little green giant was nowhere to be seen. Where are you, you little pest? Obviously Shukaku is very angry as it searches for his newfound target of his annoyance. Super Hulk Gigaton Smash. Turning its massive head skywards, it was just in time to be rewarded by two fists smashing down on its face. This was the same move that was used on Orochimaru. The Hulk somehow added an extra word, super, so perhaps it's an improved version. Then again it's definitely very super, as the sand Biju first inflate like a balloon when pressed from one side before exploding spectacularly. Like a water tank busted, the sand spills out, turning Konoha's once evergreen forest to a small sand desert. However, it was far from over as the sand shifts and starts to converge, no doubt trying reform itself. Angrily the Hulk didn't like that as he leaps over to the spot and proceeds to stomp it back down. Obviously he doesn't seem to understand no matter how many times he kill it, it would reform on its own. It's possible he will be there for a while as he continues to smash anything that moves.
This also includes the shape getting up. Without looking the Hulk backhands it as he continues his stomp the yard dance. Unfortunately that shape happens to be Gaara as he broke from his forced sleep jutsu. With all that racket and the Hulk stomping loudly, it's no surprise he's awake. Sadly he didn't get to see what hit him before he was sent away.
So without the acting medium, the sand finally stops thus leaving only a heavily heaving giant. Not that he's out of breath, it's probably just his anger issues. Anger and frustration can have that effect on you when your enemy wouldn't go down by normal means. Anyway it only served to make him look more intimidating.
Not seeing movements around him, the Hulk turns to scan the area for any movement until he spotted Gaara. The Suna Jinchuriki too happens to lock eyes with him, thus became very distressed when the start coming his way. Stay back. Stay away from me. Having stood on his own most of his life, without his so-called mother, the protection, Gaara finally sees how alone he is. Thanks to his exhaustion and adrenaline rush, he couldn't just go back to sleep, so he's forced to watch his own doom without any means stopping it.
Despite the Hulk moving slowing, it didn't ease Gaara's insecurity as he continues to use his imaginary force to stop and push back the giant. Then to his surprise, his sister landed in front of him. She opened her fan to fight the monster if she has to. Stop, I will not let you come near my little brother. While she's willing to defend him, but she did not dare to initiate the attack. If it can beat Shukaku, she doubts she can even scratch it. The Hulk's eyes never left Gaara's. Then to both their bewilderment, the green giant starts but slowly shrinks back to the blonde kid. You are like me, aren't you? Tamari was confused at the question but had the feeling it was not directed at her. As far as she's concerned, she's more relieved that the giant is no longer there.
Of the two siblings, only Gaara seems to understand him. I can see the loneliness in your eyes. The words cut deep into his heart because he too can see the same coming from the blonde's eyes. Deep in his mind, he can hear his Biju cursing someone called Kurama. No, not losing to stupid Kurama's vessel. Despite Kyuubi never once appear, it's a sore spot to lose to anyone links to his sibling Fox. Back in the real world, Gaara was lost for words. The feeling is kind of foreign to him, so he didn't know what he should say.
You know you still have a sister. It came out like a reminder, then a question to the future Cage as he turns to stare at sister. Having said his piece, the very tired blonde genin turn around and start his trek back to his home village. That's when Kankuro decides to show up. Seeing the state of his little brother, he helped his sister carry their little brother home. Before they left, Gaara apologized to both his brother and sister, which brought a small smile to our blonde's lips. Kankuro, Tamari, I am sorry. Naruto may not remember everything, but through the eyes of another he can see a fellow sufferer when he sees one. It was probably one of the main reason how his Hulk side lost all his anger. Deep down within Naruto or the Hulk, their emotions were somehow connected much deeper than they thought. It was probably another reason why Danzo is staying away from Jinchuriki Kid. Based on his reports, removing the emotion from the boy would only make him weaker. What is worst is the Hulk is the complete opposite to what he believes is key to strength. From what he can see, anger empowers the giant, whereas compassion keeps it from going on a rampage. For this reason, whenever the Hulk is brought up, it gives the old counselor a headache. He can only curse Orochimaru for creating such an anomaly, for making him question his own belief.
Tsunagakure.
In Tsunagakure, the two elders Chiyo and Ebisu were in the tower doing what they normally do, which is absolutely nothing. Since most of the forces were out invading Konoha, only a few squads remains to guard the village. Hence it's relatively a quiet afternoon. That is until a loud crash smashes through their roof and fell in front of them. Under closer inspection, they found out it's one of their village ninjas. At first they thought it was some new tent youngsters cooked up. The two can remember once in their prime, they liked to show off their entrances. They were the good old days, as it was the only entertainment during their time and at the same time impressing their superiors. Somehow it was good practice and incense to show off the results of their training. However, crashing through the roof is new, therefore the two were very impressed. The elder Ebisu remembered his own sand shunshin as he made a mess in the Cage's office by appearing in front of his leader. To this day they still haven't cleaned out all the sand. He was snapped out of reminiscing his old days by his sister Chiyo as she points out this is actually one of their ninjas from the invading force. The two elders quickly came to the shinobi and asked him, what happened? Unfortunately all the ninja could say was he was kicked out before falling unconscious. Just as they were about to call for the guards, and if things couldn't get any crazier, they were stopped by the scene out of their window. It was raining shinobis, more specifically their own invading ninja forces. Some crash landing on houses, luckier ones in pools, but they aren't much better off as they laid face down drowning in the pool. The two rushes out immediately, making their way to the nearest shinobi, repeating the same question. What happened? This time they received a different answer. I was thrown out. The two looked at one another stupidly as the ninja took the opportunity to pass himself out.
Not too far, another was on the blink of conscious, trying to stand. This time the elders chooses a different question and ask who was responsible. It was a green monster, before falling on his face. Sadly, in both their wise but old minds, the two came to the wrong conclusion and wondered if it was a bogeyman. If ninjas falling out of the sky was not enough, they now have a mythical creature to deal with.
A little creep out, the two retired ninjas try finding more coherent ninjas to talk to. One team said it was a tree that sent them here. This immediately triggers another false image of a tree monster. It was the only explanation, as Senji Hashirama were known to able to summon living trees to his aid. In the end they managed to conclude that a very big and green giant that calls himself Hulk with very big muscles was responsible. Just what is a Hulk? It sounded like some fantasy and comic book character. The two old ninja may have seen and know a lot, some even supernatural, but they weren't sure if the report is accurate. Konoha Aftermath.
After the invasion, besides the rebuilding, there are also much cleaning up left to do. Aside from the regular routine of fixing and repairing, there are also the rescuing missions. However, most rescues in needs of rescuing were in fact foreign ninjas. Thanks to the Hulk, most enemy ninjas were left immobile from either broken bodies or just struck in odd places. The outcome against the Hulk was pretty as much as expected, but it was the aftermath that fascinates even the experts. If they have to describe the scene, it can only be seen from comics. Small pile of ninjas here, scattered and littering bodies. There were results of direct confrontation with the Hulk. Thankfully, they are still alive, if not just barely. Ninjas may have the ability to protect themselves using chakra, but when something is broken, you can't fix it without medical aid. It was for this reason Konoha medics were having a field day all over Konoha. Aside from the littering bodies, there are also extreme cases where ninjas were buried. Thankfully not in a ceremonial way, because you don't want another country's ninjas buried within your village without you knowing about it. It's just another one of the Hulk extreme moves that can instantly finish off a ninja by breaking every bone they have. It's exceptionally deadly because no matter how much chakra you use to protect yourself, you wouldn't be getting up from it. For this reason, many tracking ninjas were deployed trying to find all the bodies.
In their recent discoveries, they found at least 8 ninjas sandwiched inside a wall. When they first pulled a ninja out, they were shocked to pull another, then another and another. The rescuing party had to shine a light through and go in personally just to be sure they have everyone. Since most of rescuees were either unconscious or in a hysterical manner, it's difficult to get useful information out of them. Among the minor chaos, one unfortunate Sunanin found himself awake to this strange sight just as someone sweeps into his face. "Oh, I am sorry, Ninja-san," says the young lady as she was a little surprised someone is actually there. She hurried away only to return shortly with a piece of wet cloth as she proceeds clean his face. The ninja can only thank her stupidly as he had no idea what was going on. The young lady was very nice as she brought along some dried meat and drink in case he's hungry or thirsty. Since beggars can't be choosers, the ninja just accepts everything. The last thing he remembered during the invasion was a huge shadow crashing down on him. Whatever it was must have been extremely heavy, as the poor Jonin found himself believing most of his bones were broken, hence his immobility. Thankfully he knew a way to dumb down his pain by using chakra. It's an useful trick known to veteran ninjas. By the time he snaps himself from it, the young lady was leaving him. He must have zoned out for a bit there, but he did recall her well wishes as she takes her leave. "Take care now, Ninja-san." Only she calls him Ninja-san. Then again he couldn't answer her anyway as he's already lost for words. Everything was so surreal he wondered if he's still in the same village they just invaded. If so, why were the people so strangely pleasant and cheerful even after an attack? As far as he can see, they were just cleaning up like it was an end to a festival. Surprisingly, another voice let him know he's not entirely alone. "Oh boy, what a blast. You boys sure took quite a number trying to fight our Hulk." Obviously it was more of a statement than a question, and no doubt the Jonin's current state show how well that went. Only the Hulk could send the poor ninja into the dirt like he is without any ninjutsu. Then there's also his inhuman-sized footprint. You can't miss it if you cared to take a step back for the wider angle view. Comically, the poor shinobi looked like he had just been overran by an animal stampede, leaving only his head above ground. All this time the Jonin thought he was the only one around, but apparently someone else was there all along. However, what caught his attention was the new information. The Hulk. What the hell was that? Were on his mind. Sadly he didn't even see what sent him to current sorry state. Unfortunately his confusion was easily read. Oh, you didn't even see him, that's rich. Ho ho ho. Laughed the old man, taking his situation like today's new entertainment. Leave the poor man alone. The big guy takes down ruthless missing nins just to pay for his ramen. You can imagine what a normal Jonin would be like against him. Apparently there's more than just one old man behind him. The ninja had to turn his head the other way to see him. Based on their appearances, the two were taking break from their daily stroll. It's obvious from the two benches they are resting on. They were well over the age of the Hokage, so they must be fairly old. The ninja knew their daily antics because he can't see any recite until buildings nearby, and the two had walking sticks with them.
Somehow they were there the entire time up to the point he waking up. They were watching the village's young men and women cleaning up after the invasion. You can relax now, young man, the fight is over. Konoha's just cleaning up, says the more understanding old man. True enough, the ninja can see a few chunins and genins doing jobs normal civilians can't.
Then again, the scene was like a comedy scene as ninjas were hanging off trees, walls or in the ground like himself. Other noticeable ones were those with half their body inside walls, leaving only lower half of their body visible. Unfortunately, you will have to wait a bit. As you can see, they were a bit busy trying to unplug one of your comrades. The Jonin had to sweat drop as several genins were pulling one Suna nin out from the wall. They had a few chunins supervising from the sides, prepared in case the ninja continues the fight afterwards. Then again, once he's out, the poor shinobi was in no shape to move. In fact, those crossed paths with the so-called Hulk lay broken very much like himself, as their bones couldn't handle the forceful impact, thus will remain immobile just as he is. Had it been just one or two ribs, most ninjas probably can continue fighting, but the Hulk must have been lethally brutal because he literally crushes them, breaking not just one or two bones. He may be able to use chakra to save himself from death, but can't make himself invincible. It's another reason why Konoha medics were in high demands, as they tends to those with life threats first. As the immobile ninja continue to survey the scene, the old men start their own narration and admitted today was a little different than usual. Somehow their ninjas were extra busy tracking and digging up ninjas like it was a dog looking for its lost bone. As odd as it sounds, they were right, as he can see tracker teams all over the place. It's like a treasure hunt event. No wonder the old men were amused. One team had an Inuzuka dog sniffing down a tree as it barked back in response. He soon understood the reason after they had an Akamichi uprooting the said tree. Then again, the tree did seem oddly short, like only 2/3 of it was above ground. Now that he notices it, there are other oddly planted trees too. You don't need a biology class to learn trees were not supposed to be planted with its roots to the sky. His line of vision was shared by the men behind him as they chuckles to his surprise. Surprised? Don't be. When it was first reported about hearing strange noises coming from a tree, our ninjas were skeptical. Nevertheless, they investigated. They had an Akamichi pulling the tree. It was a shocking experience, alright, as apparently there were more than just a few ninjas. Thanks to that episode, they start checking every tree. After all, it would be bad to have a foreign ninja buried in your backyard, right? Ho, ho, ho. The Suna Jonin couldn't help but turning back to the scene while sweat dropping at the light atmosphere. It's cruel, thus tracking them became one of their #1 priorities. It's another reason why they haven't dug you up yet, Sonny. Now the ninja had time to look around more. He can see another unfortunate ninja on the wall. It's another sweat drop, as only his lower half of his body is visible and that the ninja is actually on the 5th floor. As he squints his eyes, he can see he's getting similar treatment as himself. Through the windows he can see civilians moving with preparing food and drinks, taking them obviously to the shinobi. No doubt the shinobi's having the same confused thought as himself. There is also another shinobi got himself wrapped around by a steel lamppost several times. The chunins around him wonder how they can get him out without hurting him. On another wall but closer to the ground, another group were discussing how they can get the ninja out without destroying the structure or killing the poor fool. The idiot probably had panicked when he felt strange hands grabbing him, thus tried to struggle and kick at whoever was there. Sadly, with his head stuck in the wall, they can't explain the situation to him, thus result in a stalemate as they are now. They were probably waiting for the fool to calm down or finding some ways to communicate, but either way it will take a while. It was not just within the village. From his position he can faintly see some activities on the Hokage monument. Apparently they were not trying to fix it. They were actually rescuing ninjas or just trying to remove bodies from it. He was so transfixed by the strange activities he didn't realize there's now a glass of water next to him. There's even a straw for him to drink so he doesn't have to use his hands. The whole event was surreal. The Suna ninja couldn't help but try to apologize for the invasion. However, to the ninja's disbelief, the other civilian laughed, saying they never had this much fun before. His life in Konoha was getting a little dull. They laughed at the event like they were talking about the weather. Some passerby too were very nice as they fed him some jerky while he waits.
As if things couldn't get any weirder, a body sudden fell and crash landed nearby. Strangely only he was scared, as many passers-by only took a short glance before moving along to their own business. The old man near him only chuckles at his reaction as he explains. It was the results of their green giant. He says Konoha get that on a few occasions. Lucky ninjas will eventually come down, whereas some were never heard of again.
It's another shock to the immobile ninja, as he did recall waking up at one point. Sadly, at the time he thought he was having a nightmare. You don't normally see a massive giant punting your colleagues out of the village, whereas some send skywards. Naturally he passed out before he could see more. What was even more disbelievable was the civilian treating this lightly. As far as you can see, they just took a small look before going on their way. Ain't they scared that bodies are literally falling from the sky, let alone falling on top of them? Those were the thought that plagued the ninja's mind as he looked upwards worriedly for any falling bodies. Post-invasion, Iruka's report. Among the invasion, one major battle is missing from the main storyline. The Sandaime did survive from the invasion. It's not that Orochimaru had miscalculated, far from it, as he is a prodigy among the aged Hokage's pupils. Not only did his plan covered every ninja's possible interventions, it includes his teammates. However, what he failed to take into account is the Hulk. Well, it was true that the Hulk was no longer in the area as he moved to fight against the invaders in Konoha, then the Aikibi. Hence it was a separate battle as Orochimaru locked out all ninjas, leaving only himself and his sensei fighting each other. It was a perfect plan as he summons the past Hokages to fight for him, thus another slap to the Sandaime's face. Unfortunately, just as the fight about to reach its climax, suddenly his shield shook, then cracked. Obviously every ninja inside and outside the barrier were staring at the main culprit. It's not a seal, not a jutsu, nor even a superb legendary weapon. In fact, Orochimaru was furious. It's nothing but a tree. Thanks to its massive size, when through it not only cracked his shield but broke through it. He knew very well whom was responsible. He was on receiving end of such projectiles the short time he was in Forest of Death. The snake Sanin knew the giant oaf was trouble then. He should have taken care of him when he had the chance. Before he can turn to the direction where the tree had came from, his bodyguards grabbed him as he screamed curses at the green thing that calls himself Hulk. No one gave chase for a second, and by then the group had already disappeared. It was for this reason the Sandaime is again behind his desk as Iruka comes to his office. Unfortunately, in this very moment Iruka would rather be cleaning up the village with his fellow co-workers than discussing about yesterday's report in front of the Hokage. Thanks to his involvement and contributions, he now needs to explain himself to his leader. Iruka, how are your injuries? Begins the aged village leader. Thanks Hokage-sama, they were just superficial. The med nins had already closed all my wounds yesterday, they are now healing fine. It was true, thanks to how he positioned himself, none of his organs were punctured or damaged. He knew the basics that muscle tissues can be fixed using medical chakra by accelerating the body healing process. Organs on the other hand were a little more troublesome, thus would require great deals of expertise or even open surgery to mend. Medical issues aside, Iruka knew he had to explain why a bunch of academy kids was hanging around in wide open during an invasion. Unfortunately there were several eyewitnesses, so he can't deny any of them. Then again, Iruka isn't one to lie to his superior, hence he told the truth in his report. It still didn't help when he distinctively remember Anbu's chuckling in his predicament, seeing his group were like mini cheerleader squad for their Hulk. Of course there were also a number of strange looks coming from his fellow Chunins. Then again, no one bothered to move them, as it's kind of dangerous with a group of children moving through the combat zones. Hence, they opt to defend them by forming a small circle around them. Sadly, in front of the Hokage, Iruka had no excuses because as both Chunin and academy teacher he failed to keep his charges in control. Then there was also the odd report he had submitted along with his own. Despite his punishment he still liked to present work made by those along with him. It's a little scoreboard from the kids during the invasion.
227. Home run 74. Field kicks 9, pile drivers 47. Clotheslines 32. Nail in the wall 109. Stomp the earth 34. Fall. Uppercut 67. Hail Mary. After reading the odd statistic report, the Hawkeye was hesitate to ask what is Hail Mary. A little embarrassed, Iruka admitted he helped the kids with that one as it represented ninjas tossed out of the village. Since they didn't know where they will land, like the ancient text of football for overly long distance passes. Again the Hokage was lost in words. Did the man try to teach a bunch of kids some lost ancient history while an invasion was going on? Not that the village leader blamed them. With the Hulk around, his ninjas felt more sorry for the invading party. Seeing the current states of the village and the statistics in his hand, it was evident just how much a contribution the Hulk had done for them. According to Iruka's report, some kids even argued over which finisher the giant used. They couldn't decide whether it was a body slam or it was a body toss. When some ninjas decides they had enough of the brats and come their way, he was immediately speared by one of his comrades as the Hulk uses them as human projectiles. It was safe to say, the giant gets really angry when the enemies targets his precious people. They can try and force their way through, but the Hulk is like an unmovable mountain.
He both took care of the danger as well as shutting the kids up at the same time because they were missing all the action arguing with one another. One thing is clear to the Chunin, the Nara boy is right, they are indeed safer here than anywhere else. With Hulk doing most of the work and bashing every invader he sees, his fellow Chunins have nothing better to do than loitering the area. No one once dares to take away the Hulk's fun. They did try to join in but received a growl and snarl in return. Hence everyone backed off and the area became more of a circus than an invasion. As for the Hulk, he's like a small titan among mortals. Those poor ninjas never had a chance.
Hyuga residents.
The Hyuga clan too weren't safe as a few squads made it past Hiyashi and decide to attack the clan home directly. However, by the time the elite members arrived, enemy ninjas were seen fleeing from the scene. Unfortunately, they were not running from any of the Hyuga fighters or their superior fighting abilities. Instead, they were screaming something about a monster plant that ate some of their missing colleagues. There was no doubt which monster plant they were talking about, as every Hyuga member knew it's again their clan heiress's beloved and creepy flower. When Hinata later found out about it, she was overjoyed because her little pet is actually defending her home. As reward, she brought it lots of fertilizers and fresh water despite her clan's loud protests. Since then the Hyuga family became even more wary of it. Those that fell victim to its act in the past was even more hysterical, claiming they were right all along. While they know what they saw, many couldn't nor want to believe it was true. Then again, they were locked up in the first place for their delusion. They are not getting out again because they actually gone crazy because of it.
Even Hayashi was a little disturbed by it. After all, a man-eating plant in your home isn't very reassuring. Then again, it did defend the clan from the invaders. Apparently the children were only safe after they made their way to the garden, and under the protection of Hinata's plant. By the children's description, the plant had shielded them from fire jutsus.
Puzzled beyond bewilderment, Hiyashi see no reason to destroy it. At least seeing how happy his daughter is worth all the trouble. This is like Naruto all over again, as many villagers wanted him killed in the beginning. He hoped he's making the right decision, sadly only time will tell.
Thanks to the invasion, the Sandaime had to admit he's way past his age to both lead and defend his village. He felt Konoha deserved someone younger with wisdom as well as strength to both guide and defend it respectively. Therefore, it's the perfect excuse and time to retrieve his other wayward student. His two advisors wholeheartedly agreed as they too understood the feeling. They too had long left the front lines to the younger generation. Danzo may not like it as he wants the position for himself. Despite his age, he thinks anybody but him should be leader because of his experience. The Sandaime is too sentimental to his taste, because he thinks the Hokage position should be a dictatorship. However, he decides not to say anything, but since his rival does have a sound argument, which he couldn't refute himself. He did frown upon the old comment, but for now he will bid his time.
For this purpose Jiraiya was summoned. At first they offered him the position as Hokage, but he rejected it outright, giving reason he didn't want to be tied down to the village. He argued he's more useful in his counterintelligence work. They may have chosen Tsunade as the next Hokage, but out of respect to both his loyalty and position they offered him first the job. Had he chose to accept, they would still be happy to have him. It's just that since the Sandaime knew him so well, they considered an alternative. Then again, the position Hokage can't be passed down lightly, so they would still have to talk about all potential candidates anyway. So in the end, the Sannin gets a mission to pick up his old teammate and bring her back to the village. However, before he accepts the mission, he agreed only with the condition he can take Naruto with him. Since his first meeting with his godson was a disaster, he had hoped to mend their relationship by teaching him his father's signature jutsu, Rasengan. In addition, he also hoped to make up for all his absence in the boy's time growing up. Again, perhaps to change the kid's view of him, because deep down he felt his Hulk side as his true feelings towards him. Sadly, the Toad Sannin isn't wrong, as many in Konoha felt the same. Naruto may seem bash, but he lacked the emotion to truly hate someone. This was also confirmed by mind expert Inoichi Yamanaka as well as the Hulk researchers. They believe he had repressed his negative feelings for so long he's unaware he's actually wearing his happy mask. Inoichi knew Kushina thus understood her emotions well. Naruto may have his father's looks, his behavior is more of his mother's, therefore the Yamanaka clan head knew the boy functioned better as a group. At least that was before the Hulk incident. In a way, the Hokage is glad it happened as he learned to see the real Naruto. Despite the craziness with the giant, the Hulk actually brought physical change to their lives, and for the better. At first people were skeptical, but in the end they were forced to go along or just get left behind. Those whom were left behind all ended up going into drastic measures in order to get rid of him, thus either bankrupting themselves for paying the fines or just arrested for their traitorous actions. Hence when Jiraiya asks for Naruto to tag along, the Hokage happily agreed to his terms. The Hokage may act like a grandfather figure to him, but there's never too many family members, especially for someone as lonely as the kid. He had heard from his Anbus that he spends a lot of them in the Forest of Death, seeking companionship. Apparently they found him playing with dangerous tiger cubs.